we have two panel discussions, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And there is a keynote talk by Professor Mohanty as well. So to start the panel discussion on metallurgy from prehistoric times, some references to ancient Sanskrit texts as well as some findings of ASI. So the panel discussion topic is that. I invite Professor Venkatraman, the moderator of the session, to take the proceedings forward. Professor Venkatraman. Where is the slide? Circus slide. Just 1 second. So to introduce Professor Venkatraman, so he is currently a faculty at PMB Gujarat Science College. So he is also formerly at the National Council of Science Museum, Kolkata, and presently faculty at physics, and also had a PhD from DAV. And he is a very knowledgeable person, worked extensively on the metallurgical artifacts. I mean, you can talk on any subject with him. He has some information for you. Professor Venkat, thanks. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vishwa. Good morning. Very good morning. Today, the speaker, one of the panelists, Professor Ramakant Pandey. Sir, namaskar, sir, please. He is an eminent scholar and currently working as a director, Central Sanskrit University, Bhopal campus. Professor Pandey is a Rashtriya Sanskrit Sansthan director also. He is one of the eminent Sanskrit scholar, and he is as nothing is to say what it is written is only a few lines in a mini ocean of his. So I request him to occupy this chair for today's discussion. आपका आमंत्रित करें सर. The next panel is Dr. Arun Surendran. He is a strategic director and principal of Trinity College of Engineering, Trivandrum. He holds his master's in PhD from IIT Mumbai, and he was awarded the prestigious Upright Outstanding International Student Award. And Dr. Arun is the founder director of Odyssey in a cybersecurity solution. I request Dr. Arun to take it. See. And Dr. Dinesh Kumar Verma did an MSc chemistry and work experience 28 years. He is an expert in scientific conservation of cultural heritage, and he is presently working as a superintending archaeochemist in ASI Indore. And I request him to be here. Okay. Good one. One more panelist, Professor Udhainath Jha, is a professor and head of the Sanskrit Department, Central University, Puri. Due to some unknown reason, I can't say the reasons, actually illness and all, he was not able to come today. And he was to join even as an online also, but he couldn't come. We feel very sorry. So we'll continue with the three panelists. We'll start the session. There will be 15 minutes for each panelist to presentation. I request the panelists strictly stick with the time of 15 minutes. After the panel discussions, there will be questions, and the students listen very carefully. आप लोग हिंदी आते इंग्लिश तो समझ में आ रहा है ना बेटा? हाँ. In case after the panel discussion, we will be asking some questions about whatever the discussion taking place in this discussions. Based on the best answers, you will be getting a gift. 5 questions we will be asking, and be ready for getting good gifts. All the way. We'll start the panel discussion today. Thank you.
वेंकट सर,
नहीं वो दिनेश कुमार जी,
दिनेश जी, ठीक है, उनको इंट्रोड्यूस कर दीजिए। हाँ, you have to tell them। कहाँ गया? नहीं हो रहा।
We have got one more panelist, Dr. Dinesh Kumar Verma. He did his MS Chemistry and he has got a 28 years experience and conservation of cultural heritage. He worked in a NRLC Likho Rampur Raja Library. Presently, he is a superintendent archaeologist chemist in Indore Museum and he has a ASI Indore division. Scientifically conserved more than 3 lakhs folios of historical manuscripts. It itself talks a very huge thing. I request Dr. Dinesh Kumar to occupy a seat for today's panel discussion. Welcome, sir, please. Each panelist will be given 15 minutes and present your presentation. After that, to complete the panel discussion, we will have a question and answer sessions. Thank you. I request Professor Ramakant Pandey to present his. यहाँ है?
Oh, is it there?
हाँ.
No,
But इसको कर लेना, sir.
Sir, do you need this?
As you like. Yeah, it is there also. PPT, this one.
Before that, actually. I'll just copy this.
So, namaskar to all. Vidya vidyate eva yatra satatam vedyo nayo raginam yam vaidyam manasa prapadya vishaya vyaleshva bhika budhaha वेदाशेष विचार श्रीम अभिलसत् सिद्धांत भूमि समे विद्युत्यद्यतु हृद्यवद्यमखिलं श्री वैद्यनाथः शिवः श्री वैद्यनाथः शिवः. I will read my paper or I will present my presentation through Hindi because this is based on Sanskrit and I am not very much acquainted with technical terms of metallurgy. So I will present it in Hindi. I think everybody will अंडरस्टैंड. सो संस्कृत में किसी भी शब्द का जो रूट धातु होता है, सबसे पहले तो धातु शब्द धा धातु जो होते आदि गणित धातु है, धा धारणे धारण करने के अर्थ में, धीयते सर्वम जो सब कुछ धारण करे उसे हम धातु कहते हैं. तो धा धातु से तुन प्रत्यय करके धातु शब्द बनता है. तो दो तरह के अर्थ हम लेते हैं. एक लेते हैं धीयते सर्वम, तो वात पित्त कफ इत्यादि जो कुछ है उसी से शरीर धारण होता है. तो उस अर्थ में हम जो तुन प्रत्यय करते हैं वो आयुर्वेद का अर्थ देता है. और श्लेष्मादि रस रक्तादि महाभूतानि तद्गुणा इंद्रियाणि अस्म विकृति शब्द योनिश्च धातवः, ये आयुर्वेद के पक्ष में है. और दधाति शोभाम जो सबको सुशोभित करे, उसे उस अर्थ में जब हम करते हैं तब हम उस धातु का अर्थ ये धातु लेते हैं. मेटल जिसे आप लोग कह रहे हैं वो धातु उस अर्थ में आता है. दधाति शोभाम इस अर्थ में जब हम तुन प्रत्यय करेंगे तो इस सब का सुवर्ण रूप ताम्राणी, सुवर्ण माने सोना गोल्ड, रूप चांदी. तुन एक प्रत्यय है, रूट माने सफिक्स जिसे आप कहेंगे वो तुन प्रत्यय है. तो धा धातु से सफिक्स होगा और धा प्रीफिक्स है. ऐसा प्रीफिक्स भी नहीं, रूट है, रूट ऐसा है वो. सुवर्ण रूप ताम्राणी हरितालम मनः शिला गैरिकांजन काशीसा शीशलोहा सहिंगुलाह गंधको भ्रक मित्याद्या धातवो गिरि संभवा. गिरि का अर्थ यहाँ खनिज है, खान, पर्वत से इतनी धातु है. सुवर्ण माने सोना, रूप माने चांदी, ताम्र माने तांबा और हरिताल माने रांगा और मनः शिला एक गेरू टाइप का कोई धातु होता है, कालिदास उसका प्रयोग करते हैं. उसे भी संस्कृत में धातु माना जाता है, लेकिन आपके यहाँ उसे धातु शायद नहीं माना जाता. और ये शीश और लोह और हिंगुल, ये धातुएं जो हैं इस अर्थ में आती हैं। ये अमर कोश के रामाश्रमी टीका, बहुत प्रामाणिक टीका है, वहाँ ये दिया है। अब हम ऋग्वेद में अगर धातु का उल्लेख पाते हैं तो बहुत सारे आभूषण वहाँ लिखे गए हैं। मैं केवल हिंट दे पाऊंगा 15 मिनट में, और मैं बहुत काम भी नहीं कर पाया। यह शुक्र यु सूर्यो हिरण्यमिव रोचते श्रेष्ठो देवा नाम वसु। जो सूर्य, हिरण्य का अर्थ वहाँ प्रकाशमान है, चमकीला, जो चमकता है। तो सूर्य की उपमा हिरण्य से, गोल्ड से दे रहे हैं वो। और बहुत सारा हिरण्यगर्भ सूक्त है, जो कि सृष्टि के माने जो हमारी थ्योरी ऑफ क्रिएशन को पूरी तरह से भारतीय दर्शन में ले जाता है, वो हिरण्यगर्भ सूक्त है, वहाँ पर मैं नहीं जाऊँगा। हिरण्यमयन पात्रेण सत्यस्य हितम मुखम, ये भी पूरा जो है फिलासफिकल कॉन्सेप्ट है वहाँ भी मैं नहीं जाऊँगा। एक दो धातुओं का नाम मैं ये बता रहा हूँ। तो शुक्र सूर्यो हिरण्यमिव रोचते, हिरण्यमिव से यहाँ जो हिरण्य उपमान बना दिया गया है सूर्य का, उससे ये हमें देख लेना है कि हिरण्य माने चमकीली धातु है, प्रकाशमान धातु है। तो ऋग्वेद में हिरण्य का बहुत ज़्यादा प्रयोग है, और अपने पूज्य आराध्य देवता की उपमा अगर वो किसी से देते हैं तो हिरण्य से देते हैं। और सर्वाधिक प्राचीन ग्रंथ विश्व में अगर उपलब्ध है तो वो ऋग्वेद है, और वहाँ हिरण्य का उल्लेख हुआ है। इसके बाद हम देखते हैं कि ये लौट जा रहा है। अच्छा, ये अच्छा, इसके बाद वहाँ पर लोहे का भी प्रयोग प्राप्त हुआ है। वैदिक ऋषि जो है अनेक उपमाओं के प्रसंग में जब बहुत मजबूत की बात, प्रकाशमान तो सूर्य से कहेगा, लेकिन जब बहुत मजबूत की बात करेगा तो वो हिरण्य चक्रान अयोदंष्ट्रान, चक्रानयो लिखा हुआ है यहाँ, हिरण्य चक्रानयो, तो चक्रान द्वितीय एक वचन है, और अयः लोहे का वाचक है। तो हिरण्य माने सोने के तो उस रथ के चक्र बने हुए हैं, और अयोदंष्ट्र है, दंष्ट्र माने वो तीली जो लगी हुई है, कील जो लगी हुई है, उसको अयोदंष्ट्र वो कहते हैं। तो यहाँ पर विमान के चक्रों को सोने से निर्मित बताया गया है, जो कि अति चमकीले हैं, और बाकी वो जो तीलियाँ हैं वो लोहे की लगी हुई हैं, बहुत मजबूत है, क्योंकि तीली अगर मजबूत होगी तभी चक्र मजबूत होगा। ये है हिरण्य श्रृंगो योश्य पादा, किसी का वर्णन कर रहा है कि इसका जो श्रृंग है वो तो हिरण्य है, प्रकाशमय है, और अयः माने लोहे का पैर बना हुआ है। तो लौहपाद की भी उस समय बात हो रही है, और सायण भाष्य में इसका बहुत जबरदस्त विश्लेषण है कि किस तरह से उसका निर्माण वहाँ किया जाया था। अयस्मय, ये देखिए, और हिरण्य निर्निगयो अश्व स्थूणा, स्थूणा कहते हैं पिलर को जिसमें हाथी बांधा जाता है, उसको पिलर को, हाथी बांधने वाले पिलर को स्थूणा कहते हैं। तो वो कहता है कि ये जो स्थूणा है वो अयः, यहाँ निर्णिक और अयः का को गा हो गया है संधि से, तो निर्णिक अयः अश्व स्थूणा कह करके ये लौह का उल्लेख वहाँ पर हुआ है। और इसके बाद अस्त्र शस्त्रों के निर्माण में, जैसे हम लोग बाहर देख रहे थे, तो बहुत सारे अस्त्र शस्त्रों का निर्माण लोहे से करना चाहिए, किस तरह से उसमें पानी देना चाहिए, और किस तरह से उसमें तीक्ष्णता आएगी कि कितने पेड़ों को काट देगा, कितने शत्रुओं को काट देगा, और उसकी तीक्ष्णता खत्म होने वाली नहीं है। ये सारा वर्णन वहाँ पर संकेत रूप में प्राप्त होता है। अयोमुखम, ये अयोमुख उस बाण को कहते हैं जिसके आगे भाग में लोहा लगा हो कि वो शीघ्र विधे, तो ये अयोमुख बाण है। और अयसो न धाराम इत्यादि वहाँ पर, धियम अयस्ते न धाराम, यहाँ देखिए जो तीक्ष्ण बुद्धि है उसकी उपमा भी अयस माने लोहे से वो देते हैं। तो इस तरह से वहाँ पर उल्लेख हम लोग करते चलते हैं, और वो वहाँ मिलता है। इसके बाद बहुत सारा इसमें है, बहुत सारी धातुएं आप देखेंगे यजुर्वेद में, हम देखें अश्मा च में, मृत्तिका च में, गिरियश्च में, पर्वताश्च में, सिक्ताश्च में, वनस्पतयश्च में, हिरण्यम च में, हमारे पास हिरण्य हो, हिरण्य माने गोल्ड हो, अयश्च में लोहा हो, श्यामम का उल्लेख कर रहा है। तो यहाँ पर श्यामम च में, लोहम च में, शीशन च में, त्रपुष्च में, यज्ञेन कल्पन्ताम माँ, ये मंत्र जो यहाँ है। तो यहाँ पर अयस शब्द से जो है शीश का भी उल्लेख अयस यहाँ शीश के अर्थ में आया है, और त्रपु शब्द रांगा के लिए आया है, और श्याम शब्द तांबा के लिए आया हुआ है, और लोह शब्द लोहा के लिए आया हुआ है। तैत्तिरीय संहिता में भी सेम यही मंत्र कुछ थोड़ा सा रिपीट हुआ है कि अस्मा चमे मृत्तिका चमे गिरियश्च मे पर्वताश्च मे सिक्ताश्च मे वनस्पतयश्च मे हिरण्यंच मे अयश्च मे शीशंच मे त्रपुश्च मे श्यामंच मे लोहंच मे अग्निश्च मे आपश्च मे विरुधश्च मे औषधश्च मे कृष्णपच्याश्च मे। तो वहाँ का जो वैदिक ऋषि है वो ये सब चीज़ कह रहा है कि ये मुझे प्राप्त हों, तो उसमें धातुएं भी हैं जो प्राप्त करने की बात वो करते चल रहे हैं। इसके बाद अथर्ववेद में जो शीशायाध्याह वरुणः शीशायाग्नि रूपावती शीशम में इंद्र प्रायच्छत तदंग यातु चातनम इदम विस्कंधम सहत इदम बाधते अत्रिणः अनेन विश्वास सहे या जातानि विसाच्याः यदि नो गांग हंसी यद्यस्वम यदि पुरुषम तम त्वा शीशेन विद्यामो यथा नोषो अवीरहा। ये यहाँ पर शीश के से प्रार्थना की गई है कि हे शीश, वरुण अग्नि इत्यादि की कृपा से तुम मुझे प्राप्त हो, और जब तुम प्राप्त हो जाओ तो शत्रुओं को तो दूर भगाओ। शीश का कोई छर्रा है गोल गोल जो होता है जैसे कारतूस में, जो भी आप लोग ज़्यादा जानते होंगे, तो वो दूर भगाता है, और वो उस छर्रे से युद्ध करता है। तो कहता है तुम मेरे शत्रु को तो मारना, लेकिन मेरी गऊओं को मत मारना और मुझे मत मारना, मेरे भाइयों को मत मारना, मेरे मित्रों को मत मारना। तो ये शीश का युद्ध में प्रयोग जो है हो रहा था उस समय, वो वहाँ देखने को मिलता है। इसके बाद जो है रामायण में हम लोग आए अगर, तो वहाँ पर भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें हमको मिलती हैं रामायण में। तो ये अथर्ववेद में एक चीज़ और देख दें, तपा करके धातु तैयार करने की प्रक्रिया भी वहाँ आई है अथर्ववेद में। अथर्ववेद को लोग कहते हैं कि बाद का वेद है, लेकिन मैं ये नहीं मानता। अथर्ववेद का एक अपना समाज था। तो ऋग्वेद किसी एक समाज में चल रहा था, और उसी से बराबर जो है अथर्ववेद एक दूसरे समाज में चल रहा था। वहाँ पर ऋग्वेद आदि में अध्यात्म की मांग की गई है, और अथर्ववेद में लौकिकता की मांग की गई है। वहाँ अगर राज्य चाहिए तो कौन सी आराधना करिए, और ये ऋषि जो है अध्यात्म, उन्हें राज्य से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, अध्यात्म से पूरा मोक्ष की बात वो करते हैं। तो वो वहाँ पर है। तो यहाँ तपाकर धातु को तैयार करने का संकेत देखें, नव प्राणा नवभी सम्मिमीते, मैंने कहीं, अच्छा थोड़ा आप इसको करें, हाँ अच्छा इससे हो जाए, हाँ अच्छा चलें, मैं अच्छा अच्छा चलिए। तो ये शीश का हुआ। इसके बाद देखें धातु से बने पात्र की बात आए, वायव्यैव यिव्यान्याप्नोति सतेन द्रोण कलशम कुंभीभ्याम अमृणम सुते साली भी साली रापनोती। तो कुंभी इत्यादि को मैं छोड़ रहा हूँ, व्याख्या है, लेकिन स्थाली माने वो जिसमें हम दाल चावल पहले पकाते थे, बटलोई जो होती है, वो उस समय बर्तनों में भी वहाँ उल्लेख हो रहा है। ये स्थाली किस किस धातु से बनती थी, कांसे से, और राजत से नहीं बनाना चाहिए, सोने से नहीं बनाना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये कोमल धातुएं होती हैं, इत्यादि भी उल्लेख वहाँ पर हमें प्राप्त होता है। उसके बाद जो आटा हम आज चालते हैं, सभी लोग जानते होंगे घर में, वो आटा चालने के लिए तितऊ शब्द का प्रयोग वहाँ मिलता है। वो भी धातु से बनी है, वो छिद्रमय धातु है। तो सक्तुमि तितौना पुनंतो, जो लोग उत्तर प्रदेश बिहार या मध्य प्रदेश से होंगे, सत्तू बहुत अच्छे से जानते होंगे। सत्तू का वो हम लोग बहुत सारी चीज़ें बनाते हैं। तो सत्तू को चाल करके शुद्ध करना चाहिए, ये बात वहाँ पर आती है। तो ये तितऊ शब्द का प्रयोग वहाँ है। इसके बाद रथकार, ऐसा नहीं है तो रथ में कि कहाँ कहाँ लोहा लगना चाहिए और कहाँ कहाँ चांदी लगनी चाहिए, कहाँ कहाँ सोना लगना चाहिए, ये रथकार जानता है। इसलिए रथकार वहाँ उस समय बहुत प्रतिष्ठित सामाजिक प्राणी है, सामाजिक मनुष्य है। तो रथ बनाने वाला, मणिकार जो मणियों के आभूषण बनाने वाला है, अयस्ताप जो लोहे को गलाता है, किस तरह से भट्ठियों में गलाता है, और जो सूखा हुआ चमड़ा है उसको धोंक करके उससे हवा दी जाती है, वो सारी प्रक्रिया वहाँ पर आई है। धमात्री, देखिए अब अगर पहले किसी हम लोग जब छोटे थे गांव में देखते थे, तो जो लोहार धोंकाता था उसको धम्मन कहते थे, और ऋग्वेद में उसके लिए लोहार के लिए धमात्री शब्द आया है, जो गलवाता है उसे कहते हैं। हिरण्यकार सुनार को कहा गया है। ये सब चीज़ें जो है वैदिक काल में धातुओं के लिए मिल रही हैं, और उससे ये मतलब उस समय ये विज्ञान डेवलप्ड था और लोग उस पर काम कर रहे थे, और ये सारी चीज़ें हैं। पुष्पक विमान का वर्णन अगर आप रामायण में पढ़ेंगे तो वहाँ पर किस किस तरह से इहा मृग समायुक्त ही कार्तस्वर हिरणमयी, कार्तस्वर और हिरणमय दोनों सोने के वाचक है, लेकिन यहाँ हिरणमय और कार्तस्वर दोनों माने घुंघरू उसमें छन 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 कर रहे हैं। जब वो उड़ रहा है तो उसमें सोने के जो घुंघरू लगे हुए हैं पुष्पक विमान में, तो वो छनछनाहट की आवाज उसमें आ रही है। और सकृतई राशितम स्तंभई प्रदीप्तमिव च श्रिया, और हेम सोपान युक्तम, हेम माने सोने से सोपान सीढ़ियां बनाई गई हैं उसमें चढ़ने के लिए। आज के विमान में जैसे लोहे या प्लास्टिक की लगा दी जाती हैं वैसी नहीं है। और चारुक प्रवर वेदिकम, चारों तरफ वेदिका है कि वहाँ पर बैठ करके बातचीत की जाए। राजा चल रहा है तो उसके साथ मंत्री होंगे, हो सकता है जो बड़े राष्ट्राध्यक्ष हैं उनके यहाँ भी होता हो। और जाल वातायन युक्तम, जाल वातायन कहते हैं ये जो गवाक्ष खिड़की होती है उससे वो युक्त है। कांचनई स्फटिकई रपी, और वो जो है जाल वातायन कांचन सोने और स्फटिक से है। इंद्रनील महानील मणिप्रवर वेदिकम प्रवाल जाम्बू नद पुष्प पक्षा सलीलमावर्जित जिहिम पक्षा कामस्य साक्षादियो भांति पक्षा कृता विहंगा सुमुखा सुपक्षा। तो ये सारी धातुएं यहाँ पर वो दे रहे हैं कि माने सोने के हंसों को वहाँ बनाया गया है, और इस तरह से सारी चीज़ें वो चलती हैं। इसके बाद मूर्ति निर्माण की बात वहाँ पर बहुत प्रसिद्ध है। रावण आदि का जो मकान बना हुआ है वो आप जानते ही हैं कि वहाँ लोहे के स्तंभ लगे हुए हैं, क्या क्या है वो सब कुछ प्रसिद्ध है। इसके बाद सीता की उपमा जब दे रहा है, जब छोटी है सीता, तो वो कहते हैं ये मनुष्य की जैसी बच्ची नहीं दिख रही, बल्कि सोने की गढ़ी हुई मूर्ति के समान दिख रही है। तनुमध्या प्रसुश्रोणी शरदिंदु शुभानना हेम बिंब नभा सौम्या मायेव मय निर्मिता, मानो मैं जो जिसने लंका को बनाया था उस मैं ने एक सोने की मूर्ति बना करके रख दिया है, वैसी सीता दिख रही है। और रजत का भी उल्लेख है। स्फाटिकैरावृत तलाम दंतान तरित रूपिका मुक्ता वज्र प्रवालश्च रूप्य चामी करई रपी। तो जब सोने की किरणें चांदी में पड़ रही हैं तो वो किस तरह चमक रही है उसका वर्णन यहाँ पर हुआ है। इसके बाद रावण के सेनागार में कैसे कैसे लगे हुए हैं, तो वो हेम पद्म विभूषितम, सोने के कमल वहाँ लगे हुए हैं, चांदी है, बड़े बड़े स्तंभ लगे हुए हैं मणियों के, और उनमें धातुओं से खींचा गया है। ये सारी बातें हैं। राम के महल का वर्णन कांचन प्रतिमयिकाग्रम मणि विद्रुम तोरणम, कांचन प्रतिमा, कांचन माने सोने की प्रतिमा के समान दे दिया, और तोरण लगे हुए हैं मणि और विद्रुम के, ये बात वहाँ पर आई। इसके बाद बर्तनों का भी उल्लेख वहाँ हुआ है। कलश कांस्य दोहन, कांस्य दोहन का मतलब कांसे का पात्र जिसमें गाय दुही जाती थी, कांस्य दोहन का पात्र। भोजन पात्र पिठर कड़ाही जिसमें हम सब्जी बनाते हैं। आयसी मंजूसा लोहे की संदूक, और लौही तांबे या लोहे के बने पात्र, थाली थाली या बटलोई, इस तरह के बर्तनों का भी उल्लेख वहाँ पर हुआ है। आभूषण बहुत सारे हैं ऋग्वेद से लेकर के, और कितने तरह के आभूषण हैं आप उनको देखें तो सर्वभूषण भूषारहा किमर्थम न विभूषिता शक्रदत्ता वरामाला कांचनी रत्न भूषिता, सोने में रत्नों को लगा लगा करके आभूषण बनाए जाते थे। ये सारी चीज़ें हैं। इसके बाद महाभारत में लोहे से अस्त्र शस्त्र निर्माण की बातें बहुत जगह आई हैं। धातु निर्मित स्तंभों से बने प्रासाद, खान से धातुओं का निकालना, धातुओं का शोधन, मिश्रित धातुओं का प्रयोग, भालों का निर्माण किस तरह किया जाए, भालों के अग्रभाग में सांप का विष अगर बुझा दिया जाए तो कितना नुकीला हो जाएगा, ये सारी बातें वहाँ आई हैं। लौहमयी सांकल जो होती है, श्रृंखला जिससे हाथी बांधा जाता है, वो है। दुर्योधन द्वारा भीम की लौह प्रतिमा का निर्माण वहाँ पर किया गया है। वो गदा युद्ध उसी से सीखता है। चुंबकीय शक्ति का परिज्ञान उनको है कि लोहे को चुंबक खींचता है, क्योंकि तुम्हें देख करके एक भीष्म कहते हैं कि तुमको देख करके मेरा मन ऐसा खींच रहा है जैसे चुंबक लोहे को खींच लेता है। तो ये उपमाएं वहाँ आई है। और बहुत तरह के आभूषण हैं। कौटिल्य में धातु परीक्षा प्राप्त होती है। श्वेत स्निग्धम मृदु च श्रेष्ठम, अगर आप सोने की परीक्षा ले रहे हैं तो जो प्रकाशमान है और चिकना है वो सोना अच्छा है, और अगर वो हाथी के चमड़े के समान खरोंच से युक्त है तो वो अच्छा नहीं है। चमकदार चांदी अच्छी है, अगर वो काली हो गई है तो इस तरह के बहुत सारे वो हैं। और वर्ण की परीक्षा सोने की जो कसौटी है उससे की जाती है, ये बात भी वहाँ पर है। और अग्नि में तपाने की बात भी वहाँ पर आई है। कालिदास के साहित्य में बहुत सारा हुआ है। पुराणों में बहुत सारी धातुएं हैं जो कि आगे आ रही हैं। इसके बाद आयुर्वेद की बात मैं अगर करूं तो बहुत ज़्यादा किस तरह तपाना, रस, रसायन बनाने की प्रक्रिया। महाराज भोज जो कि यहीं के राजा थे, उनकी युक्ति कल्पलता में पढ़ रहा था तो मैं सोचा कि कैसे नाव में किस तरह धातुएं लगानी चाहिए। बहुत सारी बातें वहाँ हैं, ये केवल आपको रेफरेंस दिया। अब मैं इस पर लिखूंगा, अभी तो मैंने आपके विनोद जी के कहने पर ये थोड़ा कलेक्ट किया। इसके बाद लोहे के भेद जो हैं, सुवर्णम रजतम ताम्रम तीक्ष्णम बंगो भुजंगम, ये लोहे के भेद हैं, सोने का भेद नहीं है। लोहा सुवर्ण भी कहा गया है, सुवर्ण माने सुंदर वर्ण वाला, चमकने वाला लोहा। और राजतम चांदी के समान, जो लाल चमक हो जिसमें वो सुवर्ण है, सफेद चमक हो वो चांदी वाला है। ताम्र, तीक्ष्ण, बंग, भुजंगम, इस प्रकार 6 प्रकार के लोहे वहां पर माने गए हैं। और वो कहते हैं कि किस तरह से मिश्रित करके धातु को बना दिया जाए तो उसमें कभी भी जंग नहीं लगेगी, चाहे पृथ्वी में प्रलय क्यों ना हो जाए। ये बात भी वहां पर युक्ति कल्पलता में आती है। उपधातुएं भी वहां गिनाई गई हैं। और फिर स्वर्ण के भेद, स्वर्ण की परीक्षा, स्वर्ण के गुण, स्वर्ण शोधन, रजत भेद, रजत परीक्षा इत्यादि बहुत सारी चीजें हैं। तो ये केवल एक संकेत मात्र है। 15 मिनट में संस्कृत वाङ्मय में कुछ कहा नहीं जा सकता, फिर भी अपन लोग डिस्कशन में कुछ करेंगे। आप सबने मुझे सुना, इसके लिए मैं आपको धन्यवाद देता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद सर। क्वेश्चंस लास्ट में पूछ लेंगे सर, पूरा कंप्लीट पैनल डिस्कशन के बाद में। आई रिक्वेस्ट डॉक्टर अरुण।
Yes. Thank you.
So, this pointer.
No, I don't have to point. Huh? I'll just use forward, backward.
This we can use for forward, backward, but pointer we have to use this.
Yes. Very good morning. Namaste to everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be in this great lecture hall in IIT Indore. And also, I was not meant to be a panelist till I think 5 days ago. So I think one of the things about Indian knowledge systems that we must understand is that serendipity and deep desire to do something have a lot to contribute in our lives. Though we are talking about metallurgical engineering and material science, there is a deep spirituality involved in everything that Vinodji and Ishwarji and Gopi and the gang here do. So I was coming to Indore as part of the Kalaripayat team, the martial arts team who performed here yesterday, and we have a stall outside with the weapons are displayed. So I was wondering, there is nothing for me to do, and I was going to be just the presenter of Kalaripayat. And then last week, 5 days ago, this edition of the weekly comes out. This is a Malayalam weekly, a very famous weekly called Madhubhumi, which has been around for 100 years now. And they incidentally had an article on the ancient furnace technologies and forges technologies of Kerala. So I was extremely glad to put together a presentation thanks to the IKS Center for Kalaripayat and Siddhar Tradition at Trinity College, where I am the principal. And thanks to Sujitra Madhusudan and the team at IKS who put together a beautiful presentation very quickly from the notes that I gave them based on the article. And look at where the serendipity takes you. I was here this very morning, having breakfast, and I run into Balal sir and Venkatramanji. And he was somebody who was instrumental in this research that I am presenting. So there is a lot that can happen if you have a very deep desire. At every time I stand on a stage facing the young Indians, I feel like Jambavan in Ramayana trying to tell Hanuman, you have forgotten what you are capable of doing, and it's my humble duty, not that I look like Jambavan, but if that helps. Because part of how we remember our history is because we used beautiful metaphors. There is always this confusion about our history is not written like history, it is written like a mythology, like stories. But would we have any history left if our history was written like the history textbooks of today? Would anybody preserve a history textbook? It's because of the stories and the metaphors. And our metaphors are full of metallic origins. We forge we recast, and I think it's time for Vinodji and Ishwarji to think of recasting the way panel discussions are done, because we are, infinitely we are obliged to the informal sabhas that happen around such meetings where knowledge transfer happens. So without further delay, and hopefully this behaves better with me than with you, Utala Taras. So Ut in Malayalam literally means blowing. So Ut and Ala is the place where the smiths work, blacksmiths, goldsmiths. So Utala Tara is literally where the blowing of the furnace used to happen. And that's one of the ruins. The work I am presenting is entirely done by a society, and this is taken from an article written by V.S. Gerard. So I'll credit them first. So this came in this weekly. I have only knowledge of this, and after this a lot of Googling, and maybe ChatGPT can help recently when we go into research further. The author of the article is V.H. Gerard, and it's about the work done by PPST, the Patriotic and People-Oriented Science and Technology Society and Foundation, in which our dear Balal sir was part of. And the study commenced in 1989, and it was led by Mr. Aravind Dakshin, who is a Gandhian and a writer. So, what is Utala? These are the traditional smithy and forges, and there is this place in Malappuram district in Kerala where massive remnants of such forges have been found. They are not big structures, but we always had a decentralized, distributed industry. We were not about assembly lines and massive organizations of companies and businesses and so on. So it's a place called Arakku. So Arak, the word is a corruption of Uruk. Uruk or Uku is the name for Woods steel, which later on now the world knows as Damascus steel. So it used to be original Indian Uruk steel. So Urukparambu, from where it comes, and they found 3 remnants. 2 of them got destroyed because Kerala always keeps shifting to the next available cash crop. So we were building rubber estates there, and 2 of them destroyed. But luckily people didn't destroy the 3rd one because they believed that one of the local deities, Tikuti Chatan, will curse them if they destroy it. So lucky for us, for the PPST society, 1 of them remained preserved. Now they are structurally different from what was described by Francis Buchanan in 1810. So this means either they are much older than the time when he found forges, and most of the time people never get to things. The sweeping statements that we hear in history are so misleading. When you say the British were here, the Portuguese were there, French were here, to our tiny minds and imaginations, we imagine a map of India in which British and Portuguese and French and everybody keeps walking over, or the Mughals. So the problem with that is India is so vast, huge and diverse that things never happen in the same way, in the same place throughout. So some technologies remain preserved and they exist till today. So he had seen this in Valancheri and Angadipuram, marketplaces there, but these were not what he described. So we can imagine that these were much older. They were prepared from specialized mud, and then the temperature is this unimaginable 1540 degrees Celsius that they maintained inside it. So when the work was happening, we still had craftsmen who knew this. So Talacherian and Konyayappan were the sons and sons-in-law, the last master craftsman accepted as Raman, and that is one of the photographs. So what the British did was they built a modern furnace, a company called Porto Novo, to create steel, and that, as they have done to different Indian industries that destroyed the steel industry. But come World War II, they were in need of steel, so they had to come back and ask for any remaining craftsmen. And they found Mr. Raman, and they tried to recreate the forges. And there was this, he was also in charge of forges in several different sectors. So you can imagine, like the vice chancellors and the people who head research labs, there will be one master craftsman who will oversee the grander technology that happens in different parts. So as per, these are mind-boggling numbers, 300 tons of steel getting created and exported every year to Kochi. So, and they were definitely, if it comes to Kochi, they will be meant for exporting and so on. So these are the 1854 records. And the team there did a fantastic job. They met with these craftsmen. The names are there. Cheri Parambil, Moideen Gutti, Karipala Muhammad, Nerivil, Alavi Haji, Kaluvetti Muhammad. So these show that the industry cut across religious lines. And because this was a particular caste of people who were blacksmiths and goldsmiths and so on, so the religion didn't really matter. So there was an attempt to recreate, and Balal sir was telling us that there was another attempt in IIT Bombay to do the same. And they succeeded in their third attempt, which again is going back to our traditional aspect of you'll succeed the third time if the first two attempts fail. And they catalogued around 50 centers, tremendous amount of centers in Palakkad, Kozhikode and Malappuram district. So much is written about Kerala's spice trade and the ancient agricultural products of Kerala, but nobody thinks about the implements that would have been required to create such kind of an agricultural tradition for tilling, sowing, harvesting, everything, preserving. You will need metals, right? So who are the people who are making it? It's not like we imported like today. It was not like the electronics comes from Korea or something. We were building these tools and we have lost that knowledge. So look at the amount of crops that a small state like Kerala, and this is particularly one part of Kerala called Malabar, 490,279 acres of paddy and 38,000 acres of coffee and pepper, 10,000 acres of other crops. So all of this needed implements in metals. They needed to be forged and crafted. And then there were the other professions, no? Carpenters, blacksmiths, goldsmiths, barbers, potters. Everybody needed implements, tiny, tiny sizes to really large-scale implements. So they also had to be crafted by the metallurgical traditions. And most importantly, the warriors. The people of the Kalari at that time, Punniyam, Valluvanadu, Kadathanadu, and even the southern traditional Kalaris from which we have come, we needed the weapons. So once you go outside, you will see how these things are made today. But they have been there for centuries and centuries. And weapon making was something that was part of a brilliant culture that existed. Again, more and more numbers here. The 1857, after the first war of independence, the British did some raiding and they were collecting the weapons that were kept at homes at that time and in the traditional chieftain fiefdoms. So some reports were made, and look at those numbers, 17,295, just from a small region, that much amount of weapons, and in that 7,503 guns. This is coming in 19th century, the amount of guns. So when we talk about a single war of independence, it was never a single war, and we have historical records from Kerala about 1721, the Attingal Revolt, 1741, when Travancore Kingdom became the first Asian power to defeat a European power in sea and land. It defeated the Dutch in the Battle of Kolachil, and then went on to show how magnanimity, experience and wisdom in victory is, because the captured general, Delanoy, was made the main trainer for the Travancore army. So we got the expertise without killing him, made him the trainer. He survived for decades after that, and he was a great trainer, and then he died in Trivandrum, and he happens to be related to Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So there is a tradition that goes all the way from Travancore to the US presidency, if you will. So we were always at war. Nobody wanted to be messed with the freedoms and the traditional values of a society. These are some of the praises that are said about the Indian iron and steel work. Michael Faraday, whom everybody knows now, despite not knowing many of the scientists of India, his co-worker had noted, this was in the, again, 19th century. And then Captain Campbell says, the worst steel from India, the cheapest steel from India is still better than the best steel he can find in the UK. So all of us need to come together and think about why we have lost track of such tremendous technology. And IKS division is doing a superb job of trying to promote research. I know what happens in IIT Indore. We are also trying to do something similar by connecting with Siddhar tradition. Dr. S. Mahesh, the co-PI of IKS Center at our Kalaris Gurukul, will be in the panel this afternoon to talk about metals in Siddhar medicine. So it's a combination of the colonial mindset surviving and the rigid divisions which prevented us from documentation. A book I'm reading right now, it had this amazing sentence about Indians not being very keen on documenting. We have such diverse, wonderfully enriched lives, but then we probably sing a song about it for 5 minutes and leave it at that. So if we can document more, I see these great, great gentlemen sitting in front of me, Mohanty sir. Your lives are the great inspiration that can come to the youngsters sitting here. I hope all of you find time to write an autobiography and then leave it for the generations to come. Thank you very much, sirs.
Thank you very much. I invite Dr. Dinesh.
वेरी गुड मॉर्निंग, माई सेल्फ दिनेश कुमार वर्मा। मैं ऑल ऑफ सडन यहाँ पे आया हुआ हूँ। यहाँ पे डॉक्टर मनोज कुमार कुर्मी जो सुपरिटेंडिंग आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट हैं, उनका शायद लेक्चर था मेटल के ऊपर, लेकिन वो किसी कारण से नहीं आ पाए। बेसिकली मैं तो केमिस्ट हूँ, तो इसलिए मेटल का उनका जो वर्क है वो उन्होंने जो आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया में जो एक्सकेवेशन होते हैं, उस एक्सकेवेशन को किस तरह से प्रिजर्व किया जाता है, उस वर्क को मैं करता हूँ। और मेरी एक्सपर्टाइज जो है मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट में है। तो मैं यही कहूँगा कि जो यहाँ पे मेटल के बारे में बातें हो रही हैं, उसका कहीं ना कहीं टेक्स्ट रूप होता है। उस टेक्स्ट रूप को किस तरह से हम प्रिजर्व करें, क्योंकि ठीक है मेटल के ऑब्जेक्ट मिले, उसको प्रिजर्व किया गया, और प्रिजर्व करने के साथ साथ जो राइटिंग वर्क हुआ, टेक्स्ट हुआ, जो उसके फिगर हुए, हाँ, जो उसकी ड्राइंग हुई, उस ड्राइंग्स को किस तरह से हम प्रिजर्व करें, हाँ, क्योंकि टेक्स्ट को प्रिजर्व करना भी उतना इंपॉर्टेंट है जितना कि मेटल को प्रिजर्व करना। तो ये कुछ हमारे पार्ट है कि जो आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया में किस तरह से कुछ वर्क किया जाता है। काफ़ी ऑब्जेक्ट जो मेरा सौभाग्य रहा, लगभग जो है 3 लाख से ज़्यादा फोलियो जो है मैं अब तक मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के प्रिजर्व कर चुका हूँ। इसके अलावा जो हमारा मेटल का है, नॉन इनऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल्स का है या ऑर्गेनिक मटेरियल्स का है, पेपर के पर्टिकुलरली केमिस्ट्री का है, इसमें बहुत ज़्यादा मैं ध्यान नहीं दूंगा आपका। इसमें किस तरह से पेपर बना होता है, सेलुलोज, हेमी सेलुलोज, लिग्निन वगैरह जो चीज़ें होती हैं इसके अंदर, और प्रोसेस क्या होता है पेपर में। एक्चुअल में पेपर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट की बात जहाँ तक करें तो उसमें 2 तरह की चीज़ें हैं। एक तो हैंडमेड पेपर का यूज़ हुआ है और दूसरा मशीन मेड पेपर का। अगर आप देखें तो हैंडमेड पेपर जो पहले ज़माने में यूज होता रहा है, उसकी लाइफ काफ़ी ज़्यादा है। अब देखिए कुछ इसमें कंजर्वेशन प्रॉब्लम्स हमारी हैं। उस कंजर्वेशन प्रॉब्लम्स में बहुत सारी चीज़ें एक करके एक है, बहुत ज़्यादा डिटेल में नहीं दूंगा, मैं आपको फोटोग्राफिकल बताऊंगा। ये देखिए, जैसे ये हमारे पास एक मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट है। मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट में अगर आप इसमें देखें, ये अरबिक मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट है। इस मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के अंदर 2 चीज़ें दिखाई दे रही होंगी। एक तो इंक से चार्ड की हुई है। अगर हम इंक का प्रयोग प्रॉपर वे में नहीं किए, इसमें जो है एसडी इंक का यूज़ किया गया है, इसलिए आप देखें कि जहाँ पर टेक्स्ट लिखा हुआ है वो डिटोरिएट हो गया है। उस डिटोरिएशन के कारण जो है पूरी की पूरी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट डिटोरिएट हो गई। तीसरे नंबर पे आता है स्टक्ड। जब कभी भी कोई मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट अगर कहीं रखी हुई है और उसमें डर्ट एक्यूमुलेट हुई और रेनी सीजन के बाद उसको प्रॉपर अगर क्लीनिंग नहीं की गई, तो उसके जो फोलियोज हैं वो आपस में चिपक जाते हैं। देखेंगे आप नीचे वाले में, इसमें मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट जो है पूरी तरह से चिपक गई है। इसका बात होती है कि अगर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट की टाइट बाइंडिंग भी नहीं की गई है, आप जो टेक्स्ट वगैरह किताबें लेते हैं उसकी बाइंडिंग अगर बहुत ज़्यादा टाइट है तो बाइंडिंग साइड से तो वो बहुत टाइट हो जाती है, लेकिन अपर साइड पे उसका इतना डैमेज हो जाता है कि पूरी की पूरी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट ही जो है वो डैमेज होने लगती है। तीसरा देखिए, इसमें डिफरेंट टाइप के स्टेन्स और वार्पिंग भी पड़ जाती है। कहीं पानी का कोई पड़ जाता है, कहीं खाना खा रहा है उसके ऊपर स्टेन पड़ गए, या इन्वायरमेंटल पोल्यूशन हो रहा है उसके बहुत सारे स्टेन पड़ते हैं। और तीसरी चीज़ जो होती है, जो सबसे ज़्यादा हम कॉमन करते हैं, वो है कि कभी भी कोई मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट या कोई भी बुक भी कह सकते हैं कि खराब होती है, तो हम क्या करते हैं कि सेलो टेप लेते हैं और सेलो टेप उसको लगा देते हैं। तो सेलो टेप का जो माने स्टेन है वो उस मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के ऊपर पड़ जाता है, और वो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट जब इस स्टेन से होती है तो वहीं पर जो है वो डिटोरेट होकर के डैमेज हो जाती है। इसी तरह से इसमें देखें कि बहुत सारे पेपर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट में दिखाएं जिसके कवरिंग मटेरियल जो है, पूरा का पूरा कवरिंग मटेरियल जो है वो डैमेज हो चुका है अगर आप देखें। और तीसरी, अगर प्रॉपर नहीं रखा गया है तो फायर के द्वारा भी उससे काफ़ी डैमेज हो। एक तीसरे कोने पे देखें, अगर आप उस कोने वाली पे, तो उस मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट पे देख रहे होंगे कि पूरी की पूरी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट ही डैमेज हो गई हैं। इस मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट में क्या हुआ है कि मैंने इंसेक्ट इतनी ज़्यादा लगी और उसका प्रॉपर केयर नहीं किया गया, तो पूरी की पूरी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट ही डैमेज हो गई। ये देखें, डिफरेंट टाइप्स के हमने इसमें डैमेजिंग दिखाएं कि किस तरह से मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट डैमेज हो जाती। तीसरी जो सबसे बड़ी चीज़ होती है पेपर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट की या कोई भी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के अंदर, वो होती है इंसेक्ट का अटैक। अब इसमें देखें कि पूरी पूरी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट जो है इंसेक्ट से इतनी ज़्यादा खा ली गई है कि पूरा का पूरा होल्स हो चुके हैं, बहुत सारा पूरा लॉस हो चुका है। ये देखिए कुछ फोटोग्राफिक, क्योंकि मेटल ऑब्जेक्ट एक्सकेवेशन जहाँ पे होते हैं वहाँ पे फोटोग्राफी की जाती है, तो फोटोग्राफ के भी जो है प्रॉपर स्टोरेज का ख्याल रखना बहुत ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि अगर वो पूरी तरह से उसमें टर्माइट लग गई या इंसेक्ट प्रॉब्लम हो गई या एसिडिटी हो गई तो उससे भी डैमेज हो जाएगी। ये देखें, अगर प्रॉपरली उसकी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट को हमने बाइंडिंग साइड पे प्रॉपरली नहीं रखा तो वो भी पूरी की पूरी मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट जो है डैमेज हो जाती है और उसको संभालना फिर बड़ा मुश्किल हो। अब देखिए इस तरह से है, कुछ मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट को मैंने दिखाया है। ये जो है आर्मी की आई हुई 1971 की एक वार बुक है, इसको किस तरह से इसके डैमेज हो गया था उसको रेस्टोर किया गया है। सबसे बड़ी चीज़ क्या है, हम लोग जब मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट का यूज़ करते हैं ना, तो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के यूज़ में 2-3 चीज़ों का हम बहुत ध्यान नहीं रखते हैं, चाहे बुक हो या मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट हो। एक तो सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है कि जहाँ पर भी हम स्टडी करें या जहाँ पे भी हमारी लाइब्रेरी हो वहाँ पे खाने की कोई चीज़ नहीं होनी चाहिए। दूसरा क्या है कि हमारी एक आदत सबसे बड़ी गंदी है, वो क्या है कि हम फूंक लगाते हैं और पेज को खोल देते हैं। उससे क्या होता है कि कार्नर जो है वो एसिडिक होता धीरे धीरे चला जाता है और कार्नर से ही वो डैमेज होती चली जाती है मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट। तीसरी चीज़ क्या होती है कि जब भी हम मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट को यूज़ करते हैं तो जब खुल नहीं रही होती ना तो उसको कस के दबा देते हैं, तो वो जो बाइंडिंग साइड है वो उसका डैमेज हो जाता है। तीसरी नंबर की चीज़ क्या करते हैं कि हम जो हमारे बहुत बड़े स्कॉलर का तो नहीं कहूँगा, जो स्टूडेंट्स होते हैं वो मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के ऊपर अपनी रेड इंक या रेड पेन या हरी वाली पेन, नीली पेन, पेंसिल सबसे उसके ऊपर वो कर देते। लेकिन जो आज की इंक है ना वो हाईली एसिडिक इंक है, उस एसिडिटी के कारण भी पेपर जो है पूरा का पूरा मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट जो है डैमेज हो जाता है। ये कुछ इक्विपमेंट हमने दिखाए हैं कि जिसका यूज़ हम इस पेपर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के लिए करते हैं। ये देखिए इस तरह से हम कुछ इसकी सबसे पहले हम ड्राई क्लीनिंग करते हैं, फिर केमिकल। देखिए पेपर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट का सबसे जो डिटोरेटिंग फैक्टर्स है वो है दैट इज एसिड। वो चाहे एनवायरमेंटल पॉल्यूशन से आया हुआ हो या मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट जब बन रही है तो उस समय उसमें एसिडिटी रह गई। क्योंकि क्या होता था कि पहले जब मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट बनाई जाती थी, जो पल्प बनाया जा रहा था उसको जो है क्या करते थे हम, ब्लीच करते थे, तो ब्लीचिंग एजेंट उस पेपर में भी रह जाता है। उस समय के साथ साथ क्या है कि वो ब्लीचिंग एजेंट जो है उस पेपर को या मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट को जो है, चाहे पाम लीफ हो चाहे ताड़पत्र हो, वो धीरे धीरे एसिडिक हो जाता है। और जैसे एसिडिटी बढ़ जाती है तो पेपर पूरा का पूरा ब्रिटिल हो जाता है। ये आपके मतलब की नहीं, क्योंकि आप सब लोग सोच रहे होंगे कि मेटल के बीच में ये मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट कहाँ से आ गई। हाँ, तीसरे नंबर पे देखें अगर आप हम इसको, तो हम इसकी जब पूरी की तरह पूरे मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट को डिटोरेट हो गई, डिटोरेट होने के पश्चात हम इसकी लाइनिंग करते हैं जापानी टिश्यू पेपर की सहायता से। तो केमिकल क्लीनिंग में हम इसका डीएसिडिफिकेशन करते हैं और किसी भी पेपर की जो स्ट्रेंथ होती है वो साइजिंग मटेरियल के कारण होती है। तो इंटरनल साइजिंग नहीं हो सकती तो हमने एक्सटर्नल साइजिंग करते। तो एक्सटर्नल साइजिंग दो तरह से करते हैं, एक तो CMC कार्बोक्सी मेथाइल सेलुलोज की सहायता से या जापानी टिश्यू पेपर की सहायता से हम करते हैं इसको। ये देखिए कुछ, अगर आप लोग ताज म्यूजियम गए होंगे तो ताज म्यूजियम में आपने देखा होगा कि कुछ मैंने ये उस समय की बनाई हुई ड्राइंग्स हैं जिसके आधार पर जो है ताजमहल बनाया गया था। तो उसके किस तरह से हमने रेस्टोर किया है वो हमने दिखाने की कोशिश की है। इसमें देखें अगर इसमें कुछ छोटे छोटे आपको ब्राउन स्पॉट दिखाई दे रहे होंगे। ये क्यों है? क्योंकि उस समय क्या किया गया कि गम एकेसिया का प्रयोग काफ़ी ज़्यादा होता रहा, बबूल की गोंद का। इसको पीछे फटने लगा तो गम एकेसिया लगा दी गई। गम एकेसिया से क्या हुआ कि गम का जो स्टेन था वो फ्रंट साइड पे आ गया और वहीं पे होल्स होने लगे धीरे धीरे। फिर उसको हटाया गया, उसका रेस्टोरेशन वर्क आप देख सकते हैं। ये जो है मैं इसको पढ़ तो नहीं पाऊंगा क्योंकि अरबिक या पर्शियन में लिखी हुई है। इसमें खुद क्या कहते हैं औरंगजेब के सिग्नेचर वो सील वगैरह लगी हुई है। इसको देखें कि किस तरह से हम रिस्टोर करते। अगर आप इसको ध्यान से देखें तो यहाँ पे जिस तरह से आजकल हम मार्कशीट लेते हैं, मार्कशीट लेकर के हीट लेमिनेशन कराते हैं, तो इसको लेमिनेट कर दी गई थी। देखिए लेमिनेशन की वजह से इसमें पूरे के पूरे जो रिंकल्स थे, स्टेन्स था, वो एज इट इज पड़ा हुआ था, जिसके कारण ये पूरा डिटोरेट हो रहा था। इसका पूरा प्रॉपर रेस्टोरेशन किया गया और आप देखें आफ्टर रेस्टोरेशन इसका रिजल्ट। इसी तरह से ये बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट डॉक्यूमेंट्स है। हाँ, इसमें बहुत सारे जो मुगल बादशाह थे उनके सिग्नेचर्स भी हैं। हाँ, इसको भी रेस्टोरेशन वर्क किया गया। इस तरह से ये वो मैप है, आर्किटेक्चरल ड्राइंग है जिसकी सहायता से पूरे ताजमहल को बनाया गया था। आर्किटेक्चरल ड्राइंग है ये पूरी की पूरी। ये इसको रिस्टोर करने का है, ये काफ़ी बड़े। इसी तरह से हमने संस्कृत मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट कुछ दिखाई हैं कि किस तरह से हम उसको रिस्टोर करते हैं और फिर प्रॉपरली एसिड फ्री माउंट बोर्ड की सहायता से हम उसको प्रॉपर स्टोरेज करते हैं। ये देखिए कुछ मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट के चित्र हमने दिखाए हैं कि किस तरह से हम बिफोर एंड आफ्टर के चित्र दिखा करके कि किस तरह से हम रिस्टोर कर रहे हैं इसको। बाइंडिंग किस तरह से, बाइंडिंग में एक चीज़ सबसे बड़ी चीज़ है कि अभी कभी भी बाइंडिंग कराई जाए तो हमें कोशिश ये करनी चाहिए जो बाइंडिंग कवर है वो एसिड फ्री माउंट बोर्ड का होना चाहिए, और उसके अंदर जो एडहेसिव यूज़ किया जाना चाहिए उसमें कभी भी माने किसी भी समय नीला थोथा जिसे कहते थे कॉपर सल्फेट, उसका प्रयोग कभी नहीं किया जाना चाहिए, क्योंकि उसी की वजह से धीरे धीरे बाइंडिंग साइज जो है पूरी पूरी डैमेज हो जाती है। अब इसमें कुछ पेपर ऑब्जेक्ट को हमने जो फोटोग्राफ्स थे, कुछ फोटोग्राफों को किस तरह से हम रिस्टोर करके रखते हैं, ये संस्कृत मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट का दूसरा पार्ट है, बिफोर एंड आफ्टर में दिखाया है। इलस्ट्रेटेड इसके अलावा मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट हमारी इलस्ट्रेटेड मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट भी बहुत पाई जाती हैं। जैसे अभी आप सर पहले जो नंबर पर बोल रहे थे सर, उन्होंने बताया कि हमारे बहुत सारे जो ग्रंथ हैं उन ग्रंथों की लाइफ काफ़ी समय से हो गई है, तो उनका अगर प्रॉपर स्टोरेज और प्रॉपर साइंटिफिक कंजर्वेशन नहीं किया गया तो वो भी डैमेज हो जाएंगी। तो उससे हमें उस चीज़ का पता नहीं लगेगा कि जो उसमें लिखा हुआ है कि किस तरह से मेटल बनता था या जो उस समय की कल्चर थी, ये सब चीज़ें नहीं पता लगी कि उसके रिस्टोरेशन के लिए बहुत ज़रूरी है। अब आप एक मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट देखें, इसके एक एक पेज डैमेज हो गए, क्यों? क्योंकि इसका बाइंडिंग साइज जो था वो पूरी तरह से डैमेज हो गया। और उसके पश्चात अगर आप देखें तो ये आफ्टर रेस्टोरेशन वर्क, इसका वर्क दिखाया मैंने, ये प्रॉपर अब रेस्टोर्ड हो चुकी है बुक। अब इसमें देखें बहुत सारी बुकों को दिखाया कि किस तरह से हम रिस्टोर करते। ये थंका पेंटिंग का है, इनऑर्गेनिक जो आपने देखा होगा नेपाल के साइड या बुद्धिस्ट, इसमें जो है थंका पेंटिंग का, जो मड पेंटिंग के रूप में भी जानी जाती है। इसको जैसे हम कैलेंडर का प्रयोग करते हैं तो उसी तरह से वो यूज़ किया करते थे, उसका रेस्टोरेशन वर्क कुछ दिखाया है। थैंक यू। अब अगर विनोद कुर्मी सर का कुछ देखना चाहेंगे? हाँ मेटल, आप चित्र देख जरूर लें, हाँ थोड़ा सा देख लें आप उनका भी, क्योंकि मैं उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं बोल पाऊँगा। कल अच्छा, मैं डॉक्टर कुर्मी सर का ही मेन ये था, उन्होंने काफ़ी एक्सकेवेशन वर्क में काफ़ी वर्क किया है, तो उन्होंने जो एक्सकेवेशन में निकाला है उस चीज़ के बारे में उन्होंने बताया था। इसमें पूरी इनकी पीपीटी पड़ी हुई है, तो आप देखना चाहें तो इस समय प्रेजेंटली जो सर कर रहे हैं वो ग्वालियर के जो मान महल है उसके सामने माने एक्सकेवेशन वर्क उनका किया जा रहा है। उस एक्सकेवेशन वर्क में काफ़ी चीज़ें निकली हुई हैं। अगर आप देखें इसमें इन्होंने कापर मिरर के बारे में दिखाया कि किस तरह से है। ये कापर राखी गढ़ी का वेसल्स है, ब्रांजेज ये दैमाबाद का है, और ये आयरन का है। ये देखिए, ये फाइंडिंग इनकी रिसेंटली है। जो ग्वालियर का किला है उस किले के जो मान महल है, महल के सामने जो है इस तरह से कुछ मेटल एंटिक्विटीज़ पाई जा रही हैं। इसमें कुछ कॉइन्स भी मिले हुए हैं। ये देखिए, ये आयरन का एक वो पाया गया है। अभी ये लाट की मस्जिद में मेरे ख्याल से आईआईटी के द्वारा काफ़ी सबसे बड़ी समस्या इसमें यही है कि ये जो लाट की मस्जिद में सामने विक्ट्री पिलर है, इस पिलर को किस तरह से खड़ा किया जाए, ये सबसे बड़ी समस्या है इस समय। हाँ, इसमें सबसे बड़ी समस्या की किस तरह से, अभी मैं आपको बता दूं लाट की मस्जिद का जो कंजर्वेशन, साइंटिफिक कंजर्वेशन है, वो मस्जिद का पर्टिकुलरली उसका हमने पूरा कंप्लीट किया, इसी साल अभी पूरा कंप्लीट किया है। और अहिछत्रा में मिले हुए जो 550 कॉइन्स थे, कॉइन्स का जिसमें मोस्टली जो है कापर कॉइन है, कुछ जो है सिल्वर कॉइन थे, उनका रेस्टोरेशन भी इंदौर की साइंस लेबोरेटरी में किया गया है। वो पूरी तरह से साइंटिफिकली प्रिजर्व हो चुके हैं। ये सर का कुछ प्रेजेंटेशन था, तो सर अगर होते तो बहुत अच्छा होता, लेकिन हमें आना पड़ा, हमें अपॉर्चुनिटी दी डॉक्टर विनोद सर ने, तो इसलिए मैं आपको धन्यवाद। थैंक यू। पेपर कंजर्वेशन में कुछ पूछना चाहेंगे तो मैं ज़रूर बता पाऊँगा आपको।
ये अभी
जहाँ तक पेपर का सवाल है, हम लोग इजिप्ट में देखते हैं,
जी जी जी
3-4 महीना पहले हम देखे थे, वो पापिरास जो यूज करते हैं,
जी।
पापिरास।
अच्छा, हाँ पेपरास।
सो ये पापिरास से पेपर बनाते हैं उन लोग, और उसी में से कैलेंडर बनाते हैं, बहुत सारी चीज बनाते हैं। अभी दिल्ली में मिलता है वो सब चीज, वो नकली है या असली हम नहीं बोल पाएंगे, लेकिन जो हम कायरो से खरीदे थे वो देखे भी थे, वो तो सही चीज है
जी।
तो वो जो चीज है उसका इस्तेमाल यहाँ भी हुआ करता था क्या एक जमाने में ना? कोई भी बार्क का इस्तेमाल हुआ करता था पेपर के हिसाब से।
देखिए यहाँ
हुआ करता था ताल, मतलब पाम लीफ का तो बहुत है।
नहीं, पाम लीफ भी और भोजपत्र भी है, बर्च बार का भी प्रयोग बहुत हुआ है।
अच्छा,
हाँ, बर्च बार का जो सबसे अच्छा कलेक्शन आपको देखने को मिलेगा वो मिलेगा बीएचयू में।
अच्छा, बीएचयू में।
हाँ, बीएचयू का जो सेंट्रल लाइब्रेरी है, सेंट्रल लाइब्रेरी, अच्छा बीएचयू नहीं है, सरस्वती भवन,
सरस्वती भवन।
हाँ, उसमें जो
उसमें ये कितना 500 साल 600 साल ऐसा हो मिलता है।
हाँ, उसमें काफी जो है पुराना है, उसमें काफी ही ओल्डेस्ट है।
पाम लीफ
पाम लीफ तो साउथ इंडिया के अंदर बहुत ज्यादा पाई जाती है।
We always claim but we don't get. But the carbon dating by the Germans have shown many of them from India, they're fakes. हाँ, you have seen, okay.
नहीं, उसमें सर ये जो पेपर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट है, पेपर मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट का या पाम लीफ का या बर्च बार का।
अच्छा, सेकंड क्वेश्चन जो है शायद आपके योर कोलीग विल बी एबल टू से, बट डॉक्टर वेंकटरमन आल्सो वर्क्स देयर, वी हैव आल्सो सीन अ लॉट मस्जिद में जो आपका धर पिलर का हम बात कर रहे हैं, धर पिलर का हम अभी आप जो फोटो दिखाए थे उसमें कुछ ग्रीन कॉलर भी लगा हुआ था, उसको आप लोग जानबूझ के लगाए थे? क्योंकि जो मेरा पास फोटोग्राफ है वो तो एकदम क्लीन है, और चौथे पीस उसका फोर्थ हिस्सा जो है वो अभी नहीं मिला है।
हाँ, वहाँ पे नहीं है।
अच्छा, वो पिलर तो खड़ा था, क्योंकि वो तो जैसे दिल्ली आयरन पिलर नहीं था, वो नीचे नहीं था जमीन का।
जी।
तो अभी वो वैसे ही आप लोग खड़ा करेंगे उसको, या जमीन के नीचे भी थोड़ा हिस्सा लेंगे?
नहीं, जैसे ऊपर है, अब जमीन के नीचे लगने का जो डिसीजन है ये तो मैं नहीं बता पाऊंगा अभी कि उसको जमीन के नीचे से लेंगे या नहीं लेंगे। हाँ, लेकिन उसको कोशिश है कि जिस पेडेस्टल पे वो रखा हुआ है उसी के ऊपर जो है इसको इरेक्ट कर दिया जाए। हाँ सर,
एक्चुअली सर उसमें ब्रिटलनेस बहुत है।
हाँ, बहुत ज्यादा ब्रिटल है।
एक्चुअली नियरली अबाउट each 3 parts it is there.
Yeah.
If they vertically stand up, they cannot join together. They had some grand idea of join together and putting it at 40 feet and all like. That will be a big disaster, because wherever because it's a dark pillar, when you look at it, has got a 3 parts. What it is in a Brahma Bag, Vishnu Bag and Rudra Bag. And the 3 part is in a Brahma Bag is in a cross section is in a rectangle, and Vishnu Bag is in a hexagon, and Rudra Bag is in an octagon. And the last one, which is in a considered to be the cylindrical, which is the last portion, and then there is a trident. Trishul was there. This is what it is. What we are in the art, we are seeing only the 3 parts actually. The last cylindrical part, conical part is not there. So they were making a brackets and tightening them. That is how to put it. But what happened that the broken, if you look at only the transition part, it has broken. It is not broken at the whole of Brahma Bag, or Vishnu Bag, or Rudra Bag. These 3 parts we look at, this is a Brahma Bag, the second one is the Vishnu Bag, and last is the Rudra Bag. So broken in only the transition part, it has broken. So if they try to attach or anything, unless until technical evaluation is done, that cannot be done also. Yeah. And second thing is, this is actually, it is kept in some big rock was there. Rock inside, they grinded rock, it put it inside actually. Yeah. That rock is broken. It is inside, opposite of that is the Lat Masjid, there is a big rock was there, that was actually this place. It is actually from here, it's 100 feet distance, it is there is a one rock.
So they were holding it wares.
Huh.
How we ever found out those wares?
That's basically, they are one picture, is basically I think one paper of there. Balasubramaniam has given a drawing like they had putting it like clamps and all like. They can put it vertically, all the 3 pillars they can stand, but joining the 3 pillars is a grand idea.
So for the interest of everyone else, this is taller than Delhi Iron Pillar.
Yeah.
Which is why we wanted to put them together.
दार में एक पिलर है लाट मस्जिद के पास में, राजकुमार, वहाँ दिल्ली पिलर से ऊंचा आयरन पिलर है, करीब करीब आज से 900 साल पुराना है, जंग ना लगे आयरन पिलर है। 43 फीट है, दिल्ली पिलर सिर्फ 26 फीट है, दैट इज 26 फीट। दिस इज अ 43 फीट, तीनों अटैच करने से। इसके अलावा एक और पोर्शन है वो भी गायब है, और कहते हैं एक और पोर्शन जो है वहाँ के तुलका है, गुजरात के सुल्तान यू वांट टू टेक इट टू द माउंट आबू, वहाँ माउंट आबू में कहाँ जाके फंस गया पता नहीं है। इट इज अ रिटन रिकॉर्ड इज दैट इट इज इन द समवेयर इन द माउंट आबू। एंड देयर इज वन मोर सम थियरी इज, मांडव में रामाश्रम के सामने एक पिलर है जिसका हम आला की संघ कहते हैं। आला की संघ जो है दैट इज बिकॉज आला इज इन्वेडेड मांडव, सो वहाँ लोकल पीपल दे कॉल आला के संघ। We wanted to check it whether this Ala Sangh is in the extension part of this. If that is proved, then the last fourth piece is after the Rudrapak, that might be that one. Then the length will be much more longer than one. So this is one wonder. आप लोग को सब बताता हूँ, इस रीजन है, मालवा रीजन है, मालवा, निमाड़ और थोड़ा सा ही एरिया है, यहाँ सबसे ज़्यादा मेटलर्जिकल काम हुआ करता था। दिस इज अ प्लेस, मांडव वाज एन बिग ट्रेड सेंटर, बिजनेस सेंटर। ये मांडव की आबादी करीब करीब 9 लाख आबादी थी 10वीं सदी में। अभी जाएंगे तो पता कितना लोग रहेंगे, 1500। इट्स अ 9 लाख पॉपुलेशन वाज द पॉपुलेशन ऑफ मांडव इन 10th century. It was a very big trade center. That evidences one can see it from the Mandav if you look at it in other angle. Apart from the Mughal, don't think at Mughal and whatever the story which is talking about is it's another stories. But really, if you wanted to see it Mandav, you have to see it in archaeological factors and other angle. It's a history goes before 10th century. Thank you, sir.
सर थैंक यू। मांडव का एक सबसे बड़ी एक और अहम चीज़ है कि अभी हम लोग गए हुए थे वहाँ पे वर्क करने के लिए, जब G20 का आया था, तो वहाँ पे पता लगा कि मांडव के अंदर 1200 से ज़्यादा जो है तालाब थे, 1200 से ज़्यादा तालाब। अब बहुतों का इस समय मौजूद नहीं है, लेकिन अगर आप देखें तो वहाँ का वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग सिस्टम जो है इतना गजब का है। अगर आप मांडव के जहाज महल पे जाएं और वहाँ पे किस तरह से वाटर को, जिस तरह से आज हम प्यूरिफाई करते हैं, तो प्यूरिफाई करके और इसको प्रिजर्व करने के लिए कि किस तरह से तालाबों को बनाया गया था उस किले के चारों तरफ, जैसे वाटर लेवल जो है एकदम मेंटेन रहे। 1200 से ज्यादा, पता लगा कि 1200 से ज्यादा जो है वहां पे पॉन्ड्स थे मौजूद, और आज भी जो है शायद 350 या 400 पॉन्ड्स अभी भी हैं, रिमेन्स हैं उनके, लेकिन पानी नहीं है उसमें। तो इस तरह से देखें तो मांडव जो है काफी रिच रहा है पहले से ही। जी सर, थैंक यू।
Whether the chemical composition of this pillar is similar to.
Mohanty sir will be going to give a lecture on these iron pillars and all that stuff.
It is not, first of all, it's not rust free. It's
Yeah. Protective rust. It has a protective rust. Yeah.
But I was talking to the children actually.
Okay. Okay, we'll hear that.
I have two comments to make. I want to leave. It's
No,
two
no.
comments.
Protective.
If you can go back to the dancing girl, it always सबको थोड़ा खटकता है. Can you just go back to the dancing girl? Last.
डांसिंग इन्होंने लगा रखा है, नहीं यहाँ का नहीं है सर, ये मोहनजोदारो का है।
मोहनजोदारो का है। No, somebody called her a dancing girl, and that name is stuck. I don't know. This is such a regal lady. I am in love with this lady. You know. This is such. At the metallurgy, you just wonder. Mohenjo-daro, such a fine this dancing girl was actually.
Yes, sir. British sir ने लगा के रखा है.
That's right. That's right.
Horrible thing. Still the name is.
Name has got stuck. I think we should change it.
ये उसी समय जो है रखा गया इसका नाम, ब्रिटिशर्स के समय ही डांसिंग गर्ल का किया है।
Very confident, clear face. You know.
What metal is this?
Adado.
कापर में है सर,
Copper base.
कापर में।
ऐसी खड़ी है जैसे somebody called her a dancing girl. That you know, it is that
Humiliating.
heritage. You know, कोई एक बोल दिया तो that name is. I just wanted to make a comment.
ओके,
Such a beautiful metallurgical work there. You know, that's one. I heard, I don't know whether this is true. When the Moplas they were confiscated, apparently yesterday I think somebody made a mention. When they were cut, they were trying to shear it. They could not shear it from the front because it was so sharp. Moplas, it was so hard and sharp. Their shear would not go. Somebody told them you have to cut them from behind, which is soft. So that is a gradation in the hardness. So the rear was tough and soft, whereas the front was probably brittle, but very, very hard. Yeah, I just wanted to make it known. I don't know whether that record is there. Is there?
My question is this, Pandey ji, आपने अमर कोश का रेफरेंस दिया है। अमर कोश किस पीरियड का ग्रंथ है? अमर कोश की डेटिंग क्या है?
पुराना नहीं है सर, नया है, लेकिन परंपरा में हमारे ट्रेडिशन में जो धातुएं जिस तरह आई, जो शब्द जैसे प्रयुक्त हुआ उसने अर्थ देता।
अच्छा,
फर्स्ट धातु, the word dhatu is used in Ayurveda in different meaning, in metallurgy in different meaning, in grammar it means root, so like that. So he has collected all the meanings of the word.
अच्छा, अमर कोश कब का लिखा हुआ है लगभग?
15th
century। और ऋग्वेद का ऑथेंटिक पीरियड आप क्या मानते हैं?
सर हमारे तो अनादि और अनंत मानने वाला है। ये अंग्रेजियत जो है, मैंने अंग्रेजों ने जो फिक्स किया उसको आप छोड़ दे तो लोकमान्य बाल गंगाधर तिलक जिसको प्रस्तुत कर रहे हैं, जिस मान्यता को ज्योतिष के आधार पर, तो वहीं चला जाता है। तो जिसका हम अनादि उसे ही मानते हैं जिसको खोजने के बावजूद उसके प्रारंभ को हम बिगिनिंग को ना पाए और एंड को भी ना पाए, उसको हम लोग अनादि मानते। तो बिगिनिंग को अनुमान हम भले लगा लें, वास्तव में तो पता नहीं चल रहा। तो आर्य से महतो भूतस्य निहितसितम एतत्, मैंने ये जो है ईश्वर का प्रथम ज्ञान है, ऐसा हम लोग
आप मानते हैं कि सिंधु घाटी की सभ्यता से ही शुरू हुआ है?
तो मैं ये भी नहीं मानता, सिंधु घाटी बहुत बाद में है। ऋग्वेद अभी एक अलग डिस्कशन है, ऋग्वेद सिंधु घाटी से बहुत पहले, कई सिंधु घाटियां घट चुकी होंगी लेकिन ऋग्वेद था
और तब के मेटल्स थे।
हाँ तब भी थे।
सर अभी इंडिया में हम सिंधु घाटी, that's a Indus Valley civilization, another the Ganges Valley, there is one more the Vaigai Valley civilization. Vaigai is now we're talking about, there are some add thing they are getting out. Vaigai is older than Indus.
So this is a quick question. Question is regarding ये जो अथर्व वेद, the Paipalada Saka. So the Paipalada Saka of Atharva Veda we find from Kashmir to Kanyakumari in many places. हमारे झारखंड में बॉर्डर, उड़ीसा और झारखंड के बॉर्डर में जो विलेज है, वहाँ से हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी हैड टेकन 18 वॉल्यूम्स ऑफ पाइपलादा साका। तो उसमें धातु के काफ़ी रेफरेंसेस बहुत है। पाइपलादा, ये पाइपलादा साका का आप लोग कुछ इधर करते हैं, मतलब एनालिसिस, विश्लेषण करते हैं?
जी हम लोग करते हैं, लेकिन ये धातु को लेकर के
अच्छा
हम लोग ना करके जो,
क्योंकि अथर्ववादी में बहुत सारी चीज़ है, ये खाली एक शाखा का बात हम कर रहे हैं।
बहुत है और इस फील्ड में काम नहीं हुआ।
अच्छा,
दोनों हम, आप साइंस नहीं जानते और आपको संस्कृत का ज्ञान नहीं है, अगर हम दोनों मिल जाए तो कुछ नया काम हो सकता है।
संस्कृत पढ़ना पड़ेगा, संस्कृत ही पढ़ना पड़ेगा।
संस्कृत का हम कर देंगे और इंजीनियरिंग का आप करें, वो हो सकता है, दोनों मिल जाए।
लोहे के लिए लौह शब्द यूज किया आपने,
लौह और लोह दोनों शब्द,
और अयस भी यूज किया, तो दोनों में कोई अंतर है या सेम चीज है?
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है। अयस और लौह और लोह तीनों
एक ही चीज है। और आय जो है वो सीसा है।
सीसा, आय, आया, अयस उसका वो नपुंसक लिंग शब्द।
अच्छा,
आया अयसी, अयांसी, आया पुल्लिंग शब्द। आया सीसा।
थैंक यू।
Thank you. Sir, for the panel, I have got one few questions, only one or two questions. From the ancient text, how to transfer the knowledge to the present context? And the biggest problem with the NTS text, most of the we are discussing, अभी जो बात किए हैं सब संस्कृत में बात किए थे, बहुत सारे और अन्य पुरानी ग्रंथों में और अन्य भाषाओं में भी धातु के बारे में बहुत विश्लेषण है। उसका जो ज्ञान है, उस ज्ञान को हम इस प्रकार यहाँ लेकर किस प्रकार आए हैं, आज की जो आधुनिक विज्ञान के साथ में किस प्रकार जोड़ना है, ये बड़ा कठिनाई है। इस कठिनाई से कैसा दूर करना है, ये चिंता को थोड़ा आप लोग स्टार्ट करें।
सर, आपने बहुत अच्छा क्वेश्चन किया और हम लोग ये सोचते रहते हैं। मुझे लगता है कि आप या मैं या आप या जितने बच्चे बैठे हुए हैं, हम लोग ये भले माने कि हमें संस्कृत नहीं आती, लेकिन हमारे दर्शन का एक सिद्धांत है कि जो हमारा पूर्व पुरुष था वो हमारे रक्त में है। उसी तरह से हमारी लैंग्वेज में, हमारे संस्कार में संस्कृत है, उसको जगाने के लिए थोड़ा कुछ करना है। और अगर हम उसको नहीं सीखते तो ये जो हम कर रहे हैं अभी, इस पर हमें यही हो रहा है कि हम नकल कर रहे हैं किसी की। अगर हम उसको पूरा मंगा, हम भोज के युक्त कल्पलता को पढ़ लें, या जो हमारा वैदिक ट्रेडिशन है, या हमारे गाँवों का ट्रेडिशन, उड़ीसा से सर हैं, आप केरल से हैं, मतलब हम लोग गए काफ़ी जगह, भले संस्कृत को ही लेके गए। अभी मैं 8 तारीख को, 8 फरवरी से और 22 फरवरी तक लंदन और डबलिन में शुद्ध संस्कृत बोला हूँ और संस्कृत में नाटक प्रेजेंट किया हूँ और सब लोग समझे हैं। ठीक है, अखिलेश मिश्र जी वहाँ आए, बहुत बड़े लोग, प्रोफेसर रुटगर, और ट्रिनिटी कॉलेज में भी हम जा करके संस्कृत बोले। ठीक है, तो लोग वो वहाँ समझ रहे हैं, वो बोले हम भी इंडिया से कुछ समानता रखते हैं। तो ऐसा नहीं है, और हम दोनों को अब मिलना पड़ेगा। टेक्नोलॉजी आपके पास है, हमारे पास वो नॉलेज सिस्टम ओल्ड वाला है, तो हम अगर दोनों मिल जाएं, तो मैं विनोद जी से कह रहा था कि जैसे लंगड़ा और अंधा दोनों मिल के काम चलाते हैं, वैसा हमें करना पड़ेगा। और हम कभी नए हो सकते हैं, नहीं तो अभी हमको लोग ये कहते हैं कि तुम्हारे पास कुछ नहीं है, तुम हमारा ले रहे हो, हमारी लैंग्वेज, तुम्हारी लैंग्वेज भी नहीं है कोई, ये सब हमें कहा जा रहा है। तो हमें गर्व के साथ एक कोई अपनी भाषा भारत की और अपना पूरा ट्रेडिशनल नॉलेज लेकर के, क्योंकि ये किसी एक का नहीं है, ये पूरी हमारे पूर्वजों का है और वो हम सब के हैं, किसी एक के नहीं है। तो उसे लेकर के हम लोग आगे बढ़े तो मुझे लगता है अच्छा।
We are aware for the past 60 years or 70 years in the physics department and the chemistry department, they have built up telescopes according to the Sanskrit procedures. We are aware of that. So that वहाँ BHU में संस्कृत
भी है, वेदशाला
मिला के उन लोग
जय सिंह वेदशाला
To answer this question, I think the wisdom of Malayalis was that we kept the combination of Tamil and Sanskrit as Malayalam. So it becomes easy for us to follow both sides, the older textbooks. Now regarding what can we do to revive the traditions is something that the IKS division is attempting. There is this strong theory called situated learning, that people need to be able to situate whatever knowledge is given to them. Unfortunately, we have missed it. We don't have a geographical situation for anything we learn. Even at school level, we are simply told, where do you find it? Our answer is always in the textbook. It is not in the world. It has to be brought out into the world where the kids can situate their learning. That is one thing. The second is, the only craftsmanship that we are promoting is how to write an exam. Other than that, there is no craftsmanship being promoted anywhere. When the British introduced universities here, I'm not talking about the ancient universities, the modern universities were established as examination boards. They had nothing else to do. They were not research centers, they were not knowledge creation centers, they were only giving us exams. So whatever the Indians learn, they will exam. Unfortunately, we have kept up that tradition where the know-it-all, end-all is based on examination. We have to change from that, and like Make in India, we'll have to go into make in your classroom. You express your creativity. So like we were talking to Ishwarji, instead of simply putting in a metallic workshop, try to do something on the lathe, you ask them to make a sword or make a veena string. That situates the knowledge in a very different way, combining things together. So we have to bring back craftsmanship to education.
आप सब लोग इसमें तो काफ़ी विद्वान जन है। मैं केवल इतना कहना चाहूँगा कि जैसे कि हमारा सर ने बताया कि संस्कृत में ही है, तो संस्कृत की जो ट्रेडिशनल हमारी नॉलेज है उसमें और बहुत सारा हमारे पास जो हमारा ओल्ड मेथड था, वैदिक काल में था, उसको अगर हम किसी न किसी तरह से, भले ही संस्कृत हो सकता है, जैसे कह रहे हैं कि संस्कृत बहुत सारे लोगों ने, अगर हम उस ट्रेडिशनल मेथड्स को, जैसे मैं बताऊं, हम अपने पेपर कंजर्वेशन में अब हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि जो केमिकल कंजर्वेशन का वर्क है इसको हम ट्रेडिशनली किस तरह से हम, जैसे आपको सभी लोग को पता था कि मोर के पंख पहले रखे जाते थे, हल्दी का यूज किया जाता था, हाँ, पुराने जमाने में, हाँ, तो इन सब चीजों का प्रयोग करके किस तरह से हम इंसेक्ट को दूर कर रहे हैं, हाँ? अब उसी का क्या कि उसी का प्योरीफाई रूप लेकर के हम केमिकल का प्रयोग कर रहे हैं जो कि हेल्थ हैजार्ड्स भी है। तो अगर हम ट्रेडिशनल मेथड को जो हमारे चले आ रहे हैं उनको, संस्कृत ठीक है बहुत अच्छी है, लेकिन संस्कृत से अगर हम दूसरी भाषाओं में भी करके और आधुनिक टेक्नोलॉजी में ला करके उसको यूज करें तो मेरे ख्याल से हम ये कह सकेंगे कि ये हमारा मेथड है। हाँ,
नमस्कार।
एक मिनट सर, मैं दूंगा आपके केरल में आर वर्मा जो आज किंग, हाँ, उन्होंने आंग्ल साम्राज्यम और गिरवाण विजयम, ये आंग्ल साम्राज्यम एक महाकाव्य लिखा और गिरवाण विजयम एक नाटक लिखा उन्होंने, और उनने पूरी तरह बताया कि अंग्रेजों ने कैसे हमारे नॉलेज को ये सिद्ध किया कि आप मूर्ख हैं, आपको कुछ नहीं आता, और उन्होंने हमको हमसे नफरत करा दी। व्यक्ति तब हार जाता है जब उसे अपने आप से नफरत हो जाए। तो उन्होंने हमें मूर्ख कहा और हमें कहा कि सपेरे हो तुम लोग, हमें कहा कि तुम्हें कुछ नहीं आता, ठीक है। और जो बच्चों ने, हमारे उस समय के जो जवान बच्चे थे 1835 में जिनने आंदोलन किया, कैलाश चंद्र दत्त, कोई नाम नहीं जानता, 1835 में उसको कलकत्ता में फांसी दे दी गई। मुझे लगता है सबसे पहला स्वतंत्रता संग्राम सेनानी वो व्यक्ति होगा। तो हम अपने बच्चों को ये बताएं कि नहीं, हमारी जो भाषा है और हमारा जो ट्रेडिशन है वो हमारा है, अब तक हम कहीं दबे थे। तो जब स्वतंत्र हुए तब भी यही शिक्षा दी गई, और अभी संस्कृत क्यों पिछड़ी है भाई? संस्कृत से हम हिंदी में अनुवाद कर सकते हैं, मलयालम में कर सकते हैं, सब में कर सकते हैं, लेकिन उसको भी हम लोगों को केवल ज्योतिष विचारने वाला पंडित और कथा सुनाने वाला पंडित से आगे कुछ नहीं बोला गया। हमें क्यों नहीं, अब क्यों बुलाया जा रहा है कि आप यहाँ की धातु विज्ञान पर बात करिए, आयुर्वेद के यहाँ दवा करने नहीं जाने दिया गया, ये सब क्यों? और जबकि वही ले जाके वहाँ कर लिए। योगा आज जा गया सब जगह, और पहले हम नाक कान दबाते थे तो कहते थे ढोंग कर रहे हैं। तो ये सारी चीजें जो थी वो हमें हमसे नफरत कराई गई, और अब हम लोग समझते हैं कि हम लोग काफी एडवांस हो चुके हैं, तो हम अपनों को अपनाएं। मैं किसी को नहीं कहता कि आप संस्कृत पढ़िए, लेकिन आप संस्कृत वाले के पास जा करके और जैसे उसमें क्या नॉलेज है उसको हम लोग देखें। इतना ही भर नहीं है, धातु विज्ञान बस नहीं है, वहाँ बहुत कुछ है।
मुझे जहाँ तक लगता है कि जो ब्रिटिश काल का पीरियड रहा, अभी इस समय देखा होगा कि मोटे अनाज का काफी ज्यादा वर्ष, मोटे अनाज इस काल से बहुत सारी किताबों में लिखा है कि ये जो मोटा अनाज है, चाहे वो कुछ भी रागी हो या कुछ भी हो, ज्वार बाजरा कुछ भी हो, अरे ये तो यहाँ के किसानों का जो है और कोई नहीं खाता है। लेकिन अगर आप इसे हेल्थ पॉइंट आप देखें तो कितना अच्छा।
हमारे यहाँ
one point I just want to add. Actually, I think a language expert, a scientific expert, and a subject expert jointly work for the next generation. That should be done. Because this knowledge is everywhere. It's not in Sanskrit only. We can see in Tamil. We can go to the tribal people. They have a tremendous knowledge. They are speaking different things. Each and every molecule, these plants has such a kind of medicinal value. They are exploring that thing. So we need a subject expert as well as a scientific expert and a technical expert that combines will work for the society. We can make it a very that will be working. Thank you.
एक सर आई आंसर वन क्वेश्चन लाइक व्हाई पहले ये पाम लीफ में लिखते थे, पाम में लिखने एक परंपरा है, वो जो है इट इज अ पर्सनल कलेक्शंस में होते थे। They have got a tradition like every 300 or 400 or maximum 500 they have to rewrite them inside actually. Then one side they have to rewrite. and then once again they keep it. Old one, the exact copy replica they make it. It's a tradition of keeping their palm leaves. Therefore, palm leaves, the people who didn't rewrite, then those palm leaves are gone. So therefore, you won't find any palm leaves of older than might be 500, 600 years old. Maximum 300. But copy हुआ है.
But actually the Germans took some of the palm leaves,
They all are.
did the carbon dating and found that it was fake because they would put it into the soil in order to make it look very ancient or antique.
That's the thing. And that's why the earlier one, they used to inscript in a stones or in a copper plate. Copper plate inscriptions, we used to bind it in a mortar plate. We'll wind up the discussion, we'll go for the questions to the students. We are running a short of time. अच्छा सुन लेना ये questions to the open to the all the students. Who is Dumat, Hiranyakar, Ayastap? ये तीनों अब बताना पड़ेगा, आपका अच्छे प्राइज मिल जाएंगे. I'll repeat the question. Who is Dumat, Hiranyakar, Ayastap? बोले बोले जिसका है. अरे एक तो बता दे. गुड कट हो, बता दो बता दो. हाँ. नाम बता दो. आपका नाम बताइए.
आई एम अमन प्रजापति फ्रॉम पीएमए गुजराती साइंस कॉलेज. सर वो हिरण्यकार का जो आप बोल रहे हो वो सर सोने का रिलेटेड है.
हाँ.
सोने से रिलेटेड वही.
तो बाकी दो.
सर बाकी दो
बढ़िया, ये गिफ्ट में 1/3 ही दूंगा फिर.
थैंक यू.
और एक भी बता दो. यहाँ. हाँ बेटा. हाँ.
सुंदर चमकने वाला. सुंदर चमकने वाला.
ना. और कोई यहाँ गर्ल साइड. देखो डांसिंग गर्ल दिखा है तो वो शी इज अ क्वीन एक्चुअली.
सर लोहार और सोनार.
हाँ गुड. कौन लोहार है इसमें? हाँ.
हिरण्यकार सोनार है.
हाँ.
और लौहकार लोहार.
एक नाम बता. दुमात बोला था, फिर आयस्ताप बोला था. हाँ. तो गिफ्ट. हाँ. अच्छा बात. Give that. हाँ that's a very tough question.
ये तो
अच्छा, another one more question. Who wrote the book Yukti Kalpataru? हाथ उठा ले. You wrote the book युक्ति कल्पतारु. वो किस संबंध में बुक लिखा गया है? अरे बच्चे बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है ये. Let me tell you one particular phrase which I always tell to my student, and it is I said, if you don't know about yourself, don't expect any respect from others. You should know about your family, you should know about your country, you should know about your culture. Then only people will start respect you. If you want to be respected, know yourself. वापस पूछ रहा हूं, who wrote the book युक्ति कल्पतारो? बहुत बार जिक्र किए थे. बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट बुक है. हमारे मेटलर्जी की हिसाब में, इवन शिप बिल्डिंग में बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट बुक है. नहीं भाई? यस यस. हाँ हाँ ठीक है.
सर राजा भोज.
ठीक है, थैंक यू. राजा भोज परमार who was the king of this region. 10वीं सेंचुरी का 11वीं सेंचुरी का यहाँ के राजा था. तो मालवा की राजा परमार की थे, जो राजा भोज ने ये बुक लिखा है युक्ति कल्पतारु, जिसमें शिप बिल्डिंग के बारे में. यस सर प्लीज. थैंक यू.
Last question, bit tougher question. Which Britisher has said that Indian versus steel is much better than any steel produced outside the India? 2 गिफ्ट मिलेंगे आपको. बड़ा important statement है. This statement followed killing the Indian steel industry.
So Michael Faraday.
No. He tried to make.
Since not the first line.
And he badly failed in making wood steel.
Yeah.
Michael Faraday tried to make a wood steel, he badly failed.
Captain Campbell.
ये कहाँ से आई? चलो, very good, thank you. Give a big clap. So we wind up this session. I thank the panelists from my heart. For the mementos, I invite Professor Mohanty to honor Pandey Sahab.
We also have a Mohanty from inside our center.
ये मोमेंटो थोड़ा स्पेशल मोमेंटो है. आरन मूला कन्नाडी है. ये मेटालिक मिरर है, धातु की मिरर है ये. ये मिरर के बारे में थोड़ा बता देता हूं. ये केरला में बनाई जा रही है आजकल. इसका एक्चुअल ओरिजिनली सम पीपल तमिलनाडु, वो रीजन पूरा एक ही था. अभी केरला तमिलनाडु हो गया, पहले एक राज्य में होता था. वो रीजन के लोग हैं. ये टिन और कॉपर को मिक्स कर एक छोटा सा मिनरल बना देते हैं, उससे बनती है. और दिस इज अ ब्रिटल है. आप देख सकते हैं उसको डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन बाहर है. 1 इंच आईना. A metallic mirror will cost something around 1500 to 2000 rupees.
No, this is I think what quite for.
Yes, quite for. So 1 inch. 1 inch 2000 रुपए. 9 इंच की अगर मिरर ले करीब 2 लाख रुपए हो जाता. और हम
Now everybody please stand there. We'll do one photo together. आप एक कर लेंगे मिरर के साथ. आप लोग ईश्वर जी भी आ जाइए. ईश्वर जी पीयूष जी आ जाइए.
थोड़ा सा देखिए इधर पहले एक पैनलिस्ट के साथ.
हाँ एक ही सारे देखिए.
You want to come here?
Yes. एक और वो जस्ट लेंगे
Welcome again. Now next speaker is respected Professor Omkar Nath Mohanty ji. He is a BTech and MTech in Metallurgical Engineering from IIT Kharagpur and a PhD in Materials Engineering from the University of Karlsruhe, Germany. And he also did a course in Business Administration from CEDEP, France. He served as a professor at IIT Kharagpur, and he also served as director level scientist at CSIR NML Jamshedpur, CSIR lab NML Jamshedpur, and he was director of R&D section at Tata Steel, and he was also Tata Research Professor at IIT Kharagpur. And he has been Vice Chancellor of Biju Patnaik University of Technology, Odisha. Before taking up the current position, in 2010 itself, so he has served at several positions, and he is also a kind of consultant for UNIDO at Harare and Vienna, and the chairman of UK-India Committee on Material Science, the Indian side coordinator of the Indo-US project, and he also served as chairman AEC Accreditation Evaluation Committee of the Engineering and Technology Group of the NBA National Board of Accreditation Government of India. Those who are from apart from IIT system, so they are aware about NBA system, and he supervised 13 PhD students, and he holds 17 patents also. He has published more than 130 original research papers, and in his name there are he is a fellow of National Academy of Science. He received National Metallurgist Day Award from Ministry of Steel, and a lot of other accomplishments has been acquired by Professor Mohanty sir. Now I request Professor Mohanty to please start his talk. Please sir.
Thank you. Namaskar. Am I audible to everyone here? Good morning, friends. When I say friends, I can see actually all of your friends, the school children, the college children, and the children who are studying at IIT Indore, the faculty members of IIT Indore, organizers of this Dhara workshop, and my very, very respected colleagues from various other organizations in India. And I am truly fluttered and also humbled by the fact that I have been asked to deliver this talk in a place like Indore, which is a part of the Malwa area, which is well known through the ages as a place of learning. And that is what actually interests me greatly, because people who do not belong to this area, if they think of or they hear the name of Ujjain, then it actually evokes a great amount of respect that this was actually in ancient India the place of learning. And therefore it gives me great pleasure. I am particularly happy and grateful to my friends Professor Gantimurthy and Dr. Anuradha Chaudhary. Both of them are very dear colleagues from the ministry. They are all part of IIT as well as the Ministry of Education and the Culture. Essentially, I think they are associated with AICTE. So, be that as it may, since yesterday, some of you would have seen me taking part in some of your panel discussions and general discussions. So, this is an area which has interested me over the years. And Dr. Vinod, you have given me 50 minutes of time. So, I will try to stick to the time, because I know after 45 minutes, particularly young children would start, their heads will start drooping. And some of them, I am quite sure the span of attention will be gone after that. So anyway, the session or the title of the session which was given to me, which is why I put it, but this is not, I'm not going to speak on each one of them at any great length, but this is how you have given me the session. I shall actually concentrate on a few of them. So in the ferrous and non-ferrous metals in ancient India, I shall concentrate, actually the photographs here essentially represent what I intend to speak on. And one of them is what you have given me. One of them is what ये फिर खराब हो गया. This must be of Chinese origin, no? So, ये ठीक है. So, well, that is not to actually decry the Chinese, because we know they have extremely high value kind of scientific equipment also. So, the mirror actually yesterday which was given to me, and quite a few speakers were given also. This is one of the prize projections of all the attendants who came here or participants. This is the Konark iron beam. Some of them would be knowing, some would not be knowing, and this of course is the Damascus sword part. Basically, therefore, let me start with this. When you see this slide, as a matter of fact, this particular slide is an artist's impression. And this photograph, this is not a photograph, this is a painting which is there in Jamshedpur in our Center of Excellence. This is an artist's impression which is in the Center of Excellence in Jamshedpur. This is the Center of Excellence of Tata Steel. So I was very inspired when I had started this work. Of course, much before I came to Tata Steel in IIT Kharagpur, we started some work here, but in NML we did more work here. And the second one, of course, is the Konark, on the Konark temple. I will talk on the iron beams over there. The plan of presentation will be these. I don't need to talk about each one of them, but India had a great tradition, as you have been hearing since yesterday. Great tradition in the non-ferrous technology and the ferrous technology. And a word about India's great tradition in non-ferrous technology. Somebody was telling that South India did not have a great tradition in non-ferrous technology. Far from the truth actually, essentially because Dr. Sarada Srinivasan's work over the past 10 years does show that huge amount of copper and brass and even bronze, that means copper tin system, copper zinc system, they were all there in Tamil Nadu and Telangana area and Karnataka also. So in all these areas the non-ferrous technology was there, and this is an interesting part because the tin as an ore doesn't exist very much. We don't produce much of tin here, starting from the mines. But even then the copper tin system works, and zinc also, but zinc is mostly in Rajasthan. We will talk about it very soon. Then part of the iron making bloomery process yesterday, so I will not spend much time there. But the bold ones, iron beams of Konark and the uniqueness, and of course the crucible steel, Woods and Damascus, they are all connected. And of course concluding. The beauty of the Chola bronze, I don't have to spend time here, this itself speaks for itself. So such is the dimensional accuracy and the geometric kind of accuracy, mathematical precision if you like, and those are the kinds of things which will punctuate this image. Another, this is absolutely lovely and breathtaking. Now I want to start my story. I think this is the what I would call the crowning point where the Indian metallurgy was recognized. Now yesterday I was talking about the Delhi iron pillar, which was recognized by the American Society of Metals. So initially I told about the Hadfield, because Professor Hadfield 1912 he discovered the Delhi iron pillar in Delhi, he discovers. But Hadfield is a very respected name, all of us we know. When we grew up as metallurgists in IIT undergraduate, we said Hadfield manganese steel is high manganese steel, etc., etc. So Hadfield of that eminence, when he talks of discovery, the rest of the world believes that yes, it must have been discovered by him, this was existing. But after 100 years, 2012, American Society of Metals actually gifts a plaque in honor of, as a mark of tribute to the Indian ferrous metallurgy. So that was there. But today I will be talking about how the world has recognized Indian non-ferrous technology also as a great contribution, which is why this part. Incidentally, to give a context, to put it in right context and perspective, the Maharana of Mewar Charitable Fund, I didn't know until about 3 years back that they give as many as 13 awards, not 1, 2, 3. And one of them is called the Colonel James Todd Award, which is given to the person who has done a lot of work on the Indian context, and that's the award we will be talking about. And the previous awardees, who are they? Mark Tully is, of course, we know Mark Tully of British origin, but settled in India, and V.S. Naipaul, who is no more, the great Nobel laureate novelist. Incidentally, Naipaul was not from India, he was from, quiz question, he was from? Yes, so Caribbean. So West Indies you can say, because I think we understand cricket, so we can easily correlate with West Indies. When you go to the individual countries of West Indies, we may not know, but Trinidad, yes. So, but by the way, Naipaul came to India many times in search of his roots, and some of his great books, they are absolutely great. So, in 2019, I saw the British scientist, who is a very well known scientist, and many of you would have heard this name. He is Paul Craddock, and Paul Craddock was the recipient in 2019 of this award. And Dr. Craddock has been studying early metallurgy in the Jawar mines on the zinc, and more importantly, he has also worked on the ferrous materials, and there are large number of papers attributed to Craddock. I have never met him. Now this is the award ceremony, and what does he say? The sentence on the top is very important. He says the industrial revolution started here. Now this is something very significant, because whenever we talk of industry, and right now for the past 12 years, 14 years continuously in industry, prior to that in Tata Steel I was for 12 years in industry, we always talk of industry 4.0. And the industry 4.0 basically starts with the steam engine with 1.0 and blah 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 and all those developments, and finally we come to 4.0. So when we talk of industry 4.0, and we have been talking about the British actually essentially stifled our industry, and we were killed by the British. Partly I will say partly true, because essentially what contributed to the very fast disappearance of Indian technology, two of them, the textile industry, metal industry. So why did they disappear? So one of the definite theories is the lack of mass production. So we take a lot of pride in the fact that we had distributed production, that is correct, but with distributed production the economy of scale doesn't come. So in any case they would have been killed also by the current industry. So why is it that the JSW Jindals are going on for, they produce 24 million tons in India, and the Tatas produce about 20 million tons in India, and internationally they produce 34 million tons. India produces 120 million tons. So when you talk of 1 million ton or 2 million tons, that's what Rourkela steel plant or Durgapur steel plant were producing. They would be called today, by today's standard, we will call them minuscule or homeopathic additions, because 1 million or 1.5 million tons makes no sense in the world of steel, because China produces about 1000 or close to 1100 million tons, and India is second with 120 million tons. So therefore this is quite important. Mass production is the name of the game. So when Bismarck started the process, then only and thereafter the whole thing started. That's another fascinating story. Another day, if given a chance, we will talk about it, how Bismarck started, and they say it is a stolen license from England actually. So, but that's a different story altogether. But we had our own process of iron making, but they were not amenable to. They were not amenable to actually mass production, so there was some problem. But you see in this photograph, who do you find? Maharana, I have been seeing his son Lakshya Raj, but this is Dr. Paul Craddock, the British Museum. And our own NEP, we have been talking about Kasturi Rangan, the great Kasturi Rangan. He is from Kerala, basically Kerala, but I don't know where he is set. He has settled a role in Bangalore, but he is the author of NEP. So for 4 or 5 years he was the chairman of the new education policy, of the national education policy. So Dr. Kasturi Rangan also is to be seen here. You don't have to read it. Suffice it to say, Craddock says Jawar is the beginning of the industrial revolution. So being a British, he makes a statement that Jawar is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. If you read that, you will see I was very fascinated by those lines. I don't know how to read them. So I am within quotation mark I have given that Industrial Revolution happened in Europe, so it can't be, couldn't have happened in India. Now this he is quoting basically his colleagues back in Sheffield or in other places in England. And then to say how prejudiced they were. He keeps on saying that slowly with international trade in 17th century would happen, and they said they invented it themselves. And this invented part Craddock attributes to his colleagues, the British colleagues or other European colleagues, with a lot of sarcasm in his tone, that he said that my friends should say that they all invented that. For example, a very eminent scientist of chemist based in Sheffield wrote a 3-volume book on crucible steel. Incidentally, crucible steel is high carbon steel, and how were the Indians producing the crucible steel? How was the world producing crucible steel or high carbon steels if people may be working? So there are several techniques. So normally we would actually carburize a wrought iron material, which is low carbon material, but you can start from cast iron, decarburize it, or you put wrought iron into a pool of cast iron and then solid state diffusion takes place. So there are many processes, and so Indians knew how to make the crucible steel. And then Craddock says, when I put it to him, he says about the Indian process, that wasn't industry, because they said it was all very clever. They made petty swords, but it wasn't industry or science. That was all invented only in England. So Craddock finally says that's just prejudice, that they couldn't have done it in India. Why I wanted to say, when a British makes this statement, it makes a lot of meaning to the Indian science or technology, even in non-ferrous, and that's what I wanted you to go back with. So zinc metal in India. Now yesterday I think, who was it, Dr. Arun? Were you? No. We had somebody else talking about, yes, our CEO, our CEO from Hindustan Zinc Limited, Vedanta and Hindustan Zinc Limited. So Hindustan Zinc Limited, but before that, who made the presentation on the zinc, I think, Ramanathanji, yes. Now that I wanted to qualify what Dr. Ramanathan said, because what happens is, it is not merely the fact that the zinc gets evaporated. The most interesting and important part is, those of you who are familiar with the zinc metallurgy, you would appreciate when I say the smelting of zinc and the vaporization temperature of zinc, they are very close to each other, and that's of the order of 900 to 950 degrees. This is the point, the crux of the issue, why the world did not succeed and the Indians succeeded, is only because of this. That you do a smelting at a temperature, and as soon as it is smelted, it evaporates, and as soon as it evaporates, as I have written there, it actually oxidizes. So you don't get any zinc, you only get zinc oxide once again. So therefore, you would never ever get zinc as a pure metal. That's why actually the Hindustan Zinc Limited goes through all that process, So they go through electrolytic processes as aluminum does, and so on and so forth. But what did our ancestors do? What did our ancestors do? The ancestors did actually the upside down, and all the rest of it, whatever he shows, is absolutely correct. And those are holes, there was a top pot, there was a bottom pot, and the holes were there. But the most important thing is, as soon as the vaporization takes place, the distillation takes place, vaporization takes place, the vapors will come down below. And once the vapors come, they were actually cooling it underneath. And when they would cool it, they will condense. When they will condense, you will get the metal. As simple as that. We think it is as simple, but it was a great invention. That was a great invention. So I thought that's also worth mentioning. Now I switch and would go rather fast. So this is all we know, and from Stone Age to Copper Age to Bronze Age to Iron Age, today we call the Silicon Age. And of course all the smart metals, and our friends from ISRO, like Dr. Shukla, doing all kinds of very advanced things also today. They're all Silicon Age and beyond. So therefore, yesterday also I saw, but this is worth looking at. From the gold, copper, bronze, you will see the 10,000, from the BC to gradually when you go, you will find that. And I think yesterday Dr. Manna was making this point, or somebody else. Whatever you try, Steel is today the second most man-made material. Next to, is it paper or cement? It's actually paper. I was all the time thinking it should be cement, but actually it is paper. So therefore, it is the second most, tonnage wise of course. Anyway, so that's the kind of thing which you see. But so when you talk of Stone Age, the Paleolithic age, Mesolithic, Neolithic, these are all, you would not have to spend much time over here. These for the young students. And the Paleolithic sites are in many places. The sad part is, around the Paleolithic or I think the Middle Paleolithic, we have a great place. We have a great place in near Bhubaneswar or inside Bhubaneswar. Anuradha, Dr. Chaudhary may have seen that, Shishupalagada by name. And do you know, if you go there today, all my German friends from Heidelberg, they came in search of Shishupalagada. They know more about Shishupalagada than I do from Heidelberg. Professor Kulke, Hermann Kulke and so on. Now, we went in search of some of those pillars. They knew that the pillars were existing. And when we went there, we found actually restaurants and tailoring shops, but there was no pillar and anything. And then we walk and then suddenly we found there are pillars there. What I wanted to say, very sadly, many of our, since you are present from the ASI, our friend is here, from the ASI, we could not prevent the encroachment. And the encroachment is such, particularly in Bhubaneswar, where the Hinduism, the Buddhism and Jainism, the confluence of that is Bhubaneswar itself. 1950, they had almost applied for the World Heritage Site status. And remember, Ahmedabad got it now, and Bhubaneswar never got it and would never get it, because there have been buildings and buildings over the heritage places. This is the point I'm trying to make. So you go to Edinburgh. Edinburgh is a great heritage place. It has been declared as a World Heritage Site, and so on. So these are all the man on earth. If you compare, then actually it makes sense where the Stone Age and the Chalcolithic age and so on and so forth. So the important part is 200 BC, point to note, 200 BC cast iron in China. Now this is quite important, because so far our belief is, so far Indians did not know or did not resort to liquid iron. Point 1, I want to make that point. We did not make or go through the route of liquid iron. Did we know how to liquefy iron? The answer is of course. And not only that, we have evidences to show that the superheat of lead was being used to melt iron. Those of you who know a bit of metallurgy, you know the lead melts at 320 temperature, but the vaporization temperature is exceedingly high, just the opposite of zinc. As a result of which, the vaporization temperature of lead is so high that you can actually go on superheating the lead, which is the liquid, and then the melting temperature of iron comes in between, 1500 and odd. So therefore you can melt iron. Then why did we not go through the liquid iron? Because we didn't have a refractory container. Refractory container, a ceramic container, we did not know how to handle it well. This is what our theory says so far. Hence we went through the solid state. So gold, silver, etc. But second part of this paragraph is important. So gold and silver ornaments from Indian subcontinents, they are 2500. Some people contest this, they say no, more than that, but 3000 BC. So when you compare this with the Tutankhamen pharaohs in Cairo, as a matter of fact, from Luxor they have brought it to Cairo. I was amazed to see Tutankhamun is that 16 or 12-year-old pharaoh from Egypt. Gold and gold and gold, and so much of gold in my life I had never seen until I saw the Cairo Museum of the pharaohs, and particularly that young emperor Tutankhamun. So that entire graveyard, the graveyard stays in Luxor, but the gold part, the one layer, then another box, there are tons of gold. And these people, so Egyptians knew gold much longer than us. The point is, Tutankhamun was not the starter of the gold, no. They had used gold. So as far as India is concerned, in Maski region, in Karnataka, of course, this was the most ancient as far as gold site is concerned. Lead, again in India, the lead was also there, but it was mostly alloyed with copper and bronze. I will talk about bronze also later on, the Indian bronze is different from the rest of the bronzes and also brasses. The point is, in the Renaissance period, the Agricola, we know this text translated in English and so on. So we have in Aravalli region of Rajasthan was one of the most important early lead mining regions. When you come to mercury, mercury was being used, of course, by the Indian women very, very extensively. So therefore, we know this material. And the alchemic transmutation, this is very important. You will find all the Sanskrit slokas. I was so much enamored by our professor who was chanting those Sanskrit slokas. Anytime when Anuradha chants the Sanskrit slokas or these professors chants the Sanskrit slokas, you are actually immersed in meditation, because we think prayer is going on. Actually he is talking of iron making or steel making, but to us it is all prayer. No, meaning actually basically metal making or winning and religion, they were steeped together, not only in this country. I was amazed to see, you can also see, I used to see these, show these YouTube photographs both in IIT Kharagpur and also in IIT Bhubaneswar. I am quite fond of that British who had made the African Burkina Faso iron making. Before they start the furnace, that small furnace, they would bring a chicken, give a sacrifice and do a puja, and then the iron making begins. So it is practically everywhere. Practically everywhere. Whenever you are taking something from underneath the earth, man worships. So man looks to the sky, man looks also to the earth. This is the whole beauty. Until the gravitational wave theory came, so I was asking an astronaut, what are the gravitational kind of evidences in India? Then he would say, why don't you look down into the earth? Now you want to see the gravitational, our common feeling is, the young students should know this, common feeling is for gravitational evidences, yesterday I think Manna was showing it also, you have to look up, no, because the evidences of gravitation in the earth has gone down, and that is why we have the very special CERN-like establishment in Tamil Nadu that also is collecting all the evidences for the gravitational field. What I am trying to tell you is, that actually many of these kind of knowledge comes from nowhere. He used the word serendipity, Dr. Arun, that's the word actually. Because when you move in Egypt anywhere, and particularly the pyramids, you suddenly are struck with one idea. I don't know how many of you have asked this question. If you go to Egypt, you will be forced to ask this question to yourself. And that question is, pyramid is a fairly complex geometrical structure. How did the first man in Egypt, or the men in Egypt, or the emperor in Egypt, the pharaohs in Egypt, how did they come across this whole concept of a pyramid structure? Pyramid is not simple. The pyramidal structure, you have a square here, and then on every side you have the triangles. Where did they see such a pyramidal structure? In picture or anywhere? So they may have dreamt it, but how did they dream it? So the point is, when they were moving, then our guide told us, we had a conversation with some of the Egyptians. The guide said, she said that when people are moving inside the forest, the sun's rays used to fall, the early morning rays, and those of you who have seen these early morning rays, they are all straight like this. And you see those rays, suddenly it may have aroused the feeling of some kind of ideas like this. So similarly, ideas are not, we can't say this is, the idea is only the monopoly of India or whatever. When you come to zinc, we have talked enough about zinc, so I will not take much time. So tin also, in Odisha some of the tin occurs, but we have not actually taken the metal out of it. And some of the tin, I think Sarada Srinivasan's work shows tin is also there in Telangana area. Some of the tin was there in Telangana area also in ancient times. I talk of the bronze. The Indian bronze was not copper tin to begin with. The Indian bronze was, can you imagine what? Copper arsenic. Copper arsenic. And that's because the arsenic occurs in the ore. So they were using actually the arsenic part. They didn't know about the carcinogenic effect of from the arsenic. So they were using until of course, and that copper arsenic gives a different color, by the way. And copper arsenic, we have tried also some bronze, I will show that also quickly. I will now come with, after finishing the bronze, we started a project. I was telling Dr. Chaudhary that we have started this project at CSIR IMMT. No, I was just talking about the zinc. Yesterday I saw a presentation. The only difference I made, I wanted to repeat that. The zinc smelting temperature, vaporization temperature, they almost merge. So you smelt at a temperature at which it vaporizes, and the moment it vaporizes, it oxidizes. That's why the rest of the world didn't know how to take the metal out, the zinc pure metal. Our people actually, the upside down smelting which you showed, as a result of that actually the vapor collects, and when the vapor is collecting down below, there you cool and the metal will be there. Anyway, so we started this program about 2 years back, or 1.5 years back. We called it Revitalization of Heritage Metal Craft, and in short RHMO. This small fish which you see here, which is indistinct, is a very special one. How many of you have seen this? You have not seen that? This is a flexible brass. This is flexible brass. You can bend it anyway. They have flexible fish, and then they have flexible crane, heron that is. So these are all flexible. How do they make it flexible? No, actually it's very simple. Europeans also knew. Yes, that's right. So the shield which the warriors were using, you will find in Europe and particularly Scandinavians, they use also this in a much bigger way. So they actually put a thread of brass wire, very fine, and they would put it inside. They would put it inside each. These are like grain like, and then that's how they tie up. So one geographical indicator, GI for this has been applied already for this. So this is the fish, and we have taken it as our emblem for this project. The example of Dokra casting. Dokra is not limited just to Odisha. Dokra is there from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and this is again, these are brass, but this is a precursor to the lost wax process. The lost wax process is used for all the aircrafts and so on. Magnesium alloy is the lost wax process, and titanium also they use a lost wax process. But this lost wax process which we are talking about, the wax is collected from around the forest. Used to be. Now the forests are not there. So how will you collect the wax? So you are forced actually to purchase it now from the market. So this is the example of, there are several villages, but near Bhubaneswar there are 2 villages, and there this scientific group, 10 scientists are actually working. They are all PhDs. They are X-ray refractometer specialists, NDT people are there. So we have started working on some of these. And you see the point is they were making also, they do a lot of hollow castings. This is not exactly the Dokra castings. The Dokra is made out of wares, and the ware is made out of wax, and the wax is wound around a pattern which is clay. And after you wind it, then you put another layer of clay on that. You make a neck out of it. Then another crucible you take, small container of same clay, and put small chips of brass there inside. Then make a neck there, and you have another neck here. These 2 necks you join. And then you are holding it like this, where the brass chips are there. You put it inside a furnace. And they say, sab ye jab green coconut jaise karega na sound, that means it is all molten. Then you put it this way, upside down. It will come into the thing without touching the air. That's what is Dokra casting. So this is what they do for the past several thousand years, and they are ostracized. They are ostracized. They are not allowed to stay inside the village, and that's why I was asking that yesterday. So anyway, but today they can make all kinds of things. These are hollow actually. A crow, owl. I have one such. These are beautiful things they make. Mahatma Gandhi also they make. So they make all kinds of hollow. Now I don't want to say that hollow Mahatma Gandhi has a different meaning in society today, but our Dokra people also make that. But anyway, coming back to the hollow casting processes, this is the hollow casting process. I don't want to explain this. It's not metallurgy class. Another day you call me, we will talk about it. But the interesting aspect is that when I was doing my undergraduate in IIT Kharagpur, and that time it was, when we started with, that was only IIT in India. And then very quickly, of course, IIT Bombay started and Madras started thereafter. So we had professors from USA, Russian professors were there, and also we had one professor from Germany. But this American professor who went from England and he was teaching in Texas, he was our professor. He was the first, he was the second director of National Metallurgical Laboratory, Bucklin. So Professor Bucklin told us, do you know what slush casting is? SLUSH. Anyone here? SLUSH, slush casting? Defense में आप लोग करते हैं नहीं करते हैं. So then I saw in Kharagpur in the campus we have a Nayar canteen जहाँ डोसा बनता है. So I subsequently when I started teaching also casting and slush casting, I said जाके देख के आओ वो Nayar canteen में क्या होता है. Dosa is exactly like slush casting. You know what it means? What it means is they would inside a mold they will pour the liquid. And then there is a hole there at the bottom, and they know exactly after how long they would unplug it, and when you unplug it the balance liquid goes out, so you already have a skin. That's the hollow casting, and they are making, this is done in Bengal, in Bankura and Bishnupur area. So in Bankura area you will see slush casting of Ghoda, the horse. So this is the Bankura horse which is now famous around the globe. But people there do not know. You go and ask Dr. Nataraja Chaudhary, you would not know, or her scholar also would not know that the Bankura horse is made through the slush casting. But anyway, this is not important. What we are doing, trying to do, because in the presence of the people who are here from the government, I would like them to know that we started actually, yesterday there was a question about how to bring back revitalizing. Remember, we are calling it revitalizing. When some of my friends called it reviving, I objected to that. We said no, it is revitalizing. We are not reviving it, it's not, it has not disappeared. So there is a difference between the two. So revitalizing is the word. Now, but then why are they not resorting to what they were doing 100 years back? Essentially because commercially it doesn't pay. So therefore we started telling the government that how the raw materials will come and what kind of fuels will be there, how we will minimize the losses. So all those calculations are there which into the project we are doing. So these calculations, I want to bring to your attention another thing. Government of India in Moradabad area, this is quite important, and I want Dr. Nataraja Chaudhary also to look at this particular thing. The Government of India people who are looking into the brass and bronze metal, Moradabad area does business of about more than 200 to 300 crores per year. So there are big businessmen sitting there, but they would get actually these done at a very cheap rate or in expensive way in various parts of India and pay them perhaps a pittance, and they would actually export. This is what is happening. So our people, the Government of India people told us that if you are doing this project in Orissa, you should also take into account pewter metal. How many of you know pewter metal? They said we are giving you a modern material alloy and start doing pewter metal, you will make, our people will be happy, Moradabad people would also like to do that if you succeed there. I found out even pewter metal in India is perhaps at least 1000 years old. It is tin based. It's a tin based alloy. It's a tin based alloy, and it used to be with lead previously. And today you can purchase without lead. Where do you add with lead and without lead? In Udaipur itself you go around, you will find the Ganesha, Saraswati and all the icons made out of white metal. Many of you know it as white metal. But do you know that white metal is actually pewter metal? Most of the white metal is pewter metal, it is tin based, and if you want to make cutleries out of it where you are eating, you can't have actually lead, which is why unleaded what you have is here. So there are antimony also, so you can have tin antimony alloy or you can have tin with this. So but the density is slightly higher than aluminum. So we have now started telling our people do aluminum alloy castings or aluminum alloy also the forgings and pewter metal also, but it is expensive, but the melting point is very low, of the order of, next one you will see. The melting point is of the order of 260 to 290, we can actually fix the composition, it can be even lower. So the amount of energy that you spend here in melting is very low. So pewter metals are of low melting, easy to melt and cast, but expensive somewhat. So this is how we will bring this topic to almost a close. But not before this. 3 ages of civilization, when the National Metallurgical Laboratory started, Sir C.V. Raman was asked to come there. And very interesting actually. So he wrote a small piece on what NML or metal should be. So Oliver Goldsmith's book, which is called They Stoop to Conquer. So here he said they bend to conquer. And the bend to conquer essentially symbolizes the fact that metals can go through plastic deformation. It is another matter that he actually didn't show up there. Jawaharlal Nehru was coming and others were coming. So he wrote a small piece, Director NML. Well, there are scientists like Jawaharlal Nehru. Raman may not have a place there. But that's beside the point. No, but coming back to this point. So, but iron, cold iron is master of them all, out of all these. So this is the point I wanted to make. Rudyard Kipling's. So iron is so important from Kipling's work here. So Iron Age, etc., sources of iron we all know. But our students should know that meteoric iron actually, this was the first knowledge about iron. And the meteoric iron, you will see many of these meteoric irons in the British Museum. Many of you would see later on, as some of you would have seen already. There are all sizes of meteoric irons placed there. And these are all, we call them Widmanstatten pattern. And Widmanstatten because they have cooled at a slightly rapid rate from the austenite. Slightly higher magnification, but that's not important. This morning we were talking about Sanskrit slokas, but this is the Hindi version from the Rig Veda. Where actually they are talking of how to add लोहार लकड़ी के टुकड़े ये क्या लिया जाता है, then पत्थर कैसे डालते हैं, then in order to carburize it, how you are adding actually the feathers of the birds, even that's there. The other part is when you are going through, this is very important for me or for all of you who are doing ferrous metallurgy, because our ancestors knew from low carbon to high carbon. So kinds of loha, this is very important. So you see here soft iron again, so many varieties. And then the carbon steel, which is slightly higher coercive force, and you will find so many varieties. And then of course Munda loha is the cast iron, so Mridu, Kunda, Kadara. So the names itself suggest that we had all these names previously. Our people knew the magnetic properties. I come now bring you to the Konarak iron beam. On the Konarak iron beam, an epitome, I call it an epitome of aesthetics and engineering feat. And it is truly so. Those of you who have seen Konarak, you will actually agree. And we will talk about the iron beams, but not before I take you through 5 or 6 slides of Konarak itself, so that you have a virtual feel of what Konarak is like. First of all, I must tell you, the British occupied Orissa around 1803. So until about 1855 or 60, they did not know about the presence of Konarak. So it was once again perchance, because Konarak was known as the Black Pagoda. The Dutch and the British ship that used to go on the seashore, they would see a black kind of pagoda is stepped structure. That's why they call it pagoda. If that was the black pagoda, what was the white pagoda? Which question? The white pagoda was Puri temple. So therefore, this was looking like the black pagoda, the stepped ones. But this is not the temple, as you will see. So in 1870s, they saw it, they started excavating it. And the excavation is important, but because from here, right from the bottom to the top of the temple, every inch is carved and sculptured. And the wheels, which are 24 in number, which are there, these wheels were all under clay. So they took more than 50 years in excavating that. Now I want to tell you something about the Kalinga architectural principles. Now the architectural principles, this is of course what you say the Khakara Devla or temple. This is almost like South Indian temple. So you have the roundish thing on the top. I put it deliberately on the blue because that's meant essentially for Durga and Tantrism. Rest of it you will find is the classic styles. So you will find, for example, the dance hall and the people to congregate. So this is the entrance, but the Garbhagriha or the men's shrine, the sanctum sanctorum as you will call it, the sanctum sanctorum is here. The sanctum sanctorum had a curved or curvilinear nature, and that's why Rekha Devla they call it. And these are all once again pyramidal structures. These are all pyramidal structures, but stepped ones. That's why they are called Pida Deula. Pida is actually stepped. So what happens is Pida Deula cannot actually accommodate the shrine. Pida Deula is meant for the human beings to collect there and make a darshan of the icon. But the Lord or the sanctum sanctorum is here. This is how all temples are. For example, those of you who have seen the Jagannath temple at Puri, showing the Jagamohana and the main temple with sanctum sanctorum. So therefore, this is again that curvilinear thing, Rekha part, and these two are the pyramidal part. So if you understand this, the next one will become easier for you to understand. This was the temple. This is how Konark temple was. There is a color code given there, and the color code is given there essentially to tell you what you see today in Konark, only this part. This main temple is gone. The main temple was about 230 feet, and the main temple at 230 feet, almost on the seashore, the temple as it is all recorded today by the Dutch historians, the English historians, as well as Mughal emperor's court also. So you will find here that this was apparently the tallest temple in the whole world. That was the main temple, but that collapsed. The fall of Konark temple. So the restoration was another matter, but it collapsed around before 1876. So this is the artist impression in British Museum. You'll find some of these photographs. No, not photographs, artist impression. And this is once again the restoration of the main entrance. Now this was there. Oh, sorry. This is an interesting picture, which is why I wanted to spend half a minute here. You know this portion? This portion was the surviving portion of the main temple, as they saw it in 1837. And it had reported a small part was still remaining. Then came, okay. So then came actually the restoration part of it. So this is again the artist impression, and you will find this is how they filled it up with sand. So this is only the entrance hall. This is only the entrance hall. Actually, 45 minutes I've spent. 43 minutes. 45 minutes. Okay. Okay. Another. So all these we have seen now. After restoration, this is how it looks. This is how after restoration you will find. Now yesterday I think this picture was shown by people. This is on the main entrance also you will find. But now these are our beams. But what we found was the following. The dimensions, if you go through, 4 or 5 of them, there are 32 beams there. 5 of them, which are the largest, they are larger than Delhi iron pillar and heavier than. So use of iron beams in Odisha temples, in other temples also are there. But whether they are composite beams, we do not know. So once again, the composition etc. are not important. Important is, yesterday also I think Professor Balal was talking about this. These ones which are sticking out like bamboos. So we knew that there are pieces inside. So the British historians, some of them, they referred to this, and we found also in the local language there are some reports on this. So they would say smaller pieces of only 2 feet, they were casting beforehand, put them horizontally, put them vertically, then put the next bloomery iron, or yesterday whatever I showed, that hot bloomery iron, start hammering it. When you start hammering it, this is the method of manufacturing. You will find M.K. Ghosh's work. He took a piece, Archaeological Survey of India actually in 1965 allowed him to take a piece, and he was making a tensile piece out of it. When he was trying to make a tensile piece, he found a cleavage plane, and this cleavage plane, he didn't mention it, but we knew the cleavage plane will automatically come if you have actually smaller pieces inside the big piece. That's what actually happened. So I will quickly go through. This only shows M.K. Ghosh's work that actually the carbon content again varies naturally. The carbon content will vary. So microstructure etc. Well, let's forget that. But why the composite beams? The composite beam is the crack resistance nature. That's what is important. So corrosion behavior is, you can see the corrosion, but it is not through and through corroded. Remember, it is only 3 kilometers from the seashore as it lies today. It lies horizontally, and if the temple broke or collapsed in the year 1850, so for the past nearly 200 years it is lying on the ground, and it collects a lot of water. compared it, what I said yesterday, Delhi Iron Pillar, which is about 800 kilometers as the crow flies from the seashore, and it is standing, and therefore wet and dry conditions. So therefore there is a problem. So I will talk only 2 minutes about this, the non-destructive characterization, electrochemical behavior, microstructural studies. This is what we started 2 months back with a team from NML Jamshedpur and another team from IIT Bhubaneswar. So this is where we started about 2 months back, and we started doing actually, ASI generously allowed us only to polish this. We don't break anything, but we just polished it. And the ultrasonic thing which we did clearly showed without much of attenuation, as we say in the language of ultrasonic, that means it is fairly good material. And the electrochemical behavior. So you will find that there is passivation layer after, so potential dynamic curves or studies are going on now. So only some of them I would like to show. Cyclic voltammetry. And this is the point. So the slag inclusion here in one of the smaller pieces which is embedded, slag inclusion is much less compared to Delhi Iron Pillar or anything. This is not the matrix microstructure. What you are seeing actually the embedded part, So the more important part is, in many parts of the beam you will find unwelded portions. I repeat, unwelded portions. The beam has unwelded portions. That means imperfect welding. In spite of that, it actually used to carry the Navagraha. The Navagraha has been broken down into 9 parts, and the British have taken it. That's one Navagraha. The other Navagraha, the British tried to take it also to London and then to Calcutta Museum, didn't succeed, left it there, 100 meters away only. And the local people actually constructed a temple around. ASI now has put the Navagraha there. So the most important part is again the ferrite, pearlite, but the slag inclusion is much less. So these are the concluding remarks. But the whole point is, these are the observations of CBRI for the sand, and some of you may be aware, now the sand is being taken out now. IIT Madras, our friend has left already, Murugayan. So it is Dr. Arun Menon. Some of you would know. Arun Menon is the chief of this team. So the Indian team is now trying to take the sand out. The question that we are trying to ask, is the what you call the site of, thank you, the site of the iron making. Where was the site? We do not know that. Usko band kar dijiye nahi to. So I will quickly go through that. There are only 2-3 slides over here, not much. So when you talk of the advanced material, since yesterday we have been seeing Golconda or whatever, the optimum structure property of this is a fairly complex one. So I came across, we did that work at NML Jamshedpur on the Damascus swords and Woods metal, which is why I am keen, because you can actually have a tetrahedron here of all the properties, microstructure and so on. So all that's not important. So what is important is the pattern yesterday also was shown, that's also not very critical for our purpose. It's an ultra high carbon material. The point I think everybody who is not a metallurgist should understand, if you have more than 1.2 or 1.3% carbon, the material is extremely brittle. Example is a कढ़ाई, आप जाके बाजार से एक कढ़ाई खरीद लीजिए जो कास्ट हुआ है, उसको यही 2-4 फुट से ये कर दीजिए. If you allow it to fall, it will break into fragments. But this material was actually converted into a sword, and then the sword was actually being used in the battlefield. Now this kind of sword, I think there are some misconceptions. It is not a fact that Damascus was the only center where the Damascus swords were made. As a matter of fact, we have a different theory also. There is an English word which is called D-A-M-A-S-K. You can check up. And damask in English essentially means it's a mercerized texture. So if you let actually a piece of cloth flutter in wind, the waves which you get, that's the damask. So there is a possibility that because of the curvings which you see on the surface like this is the damask. So point is, there are 2 things I have said. One is, how is it that the high carbon material is ductile, and second is, how does it get its pattern from? Because if you run your finger on the sword, it is all smooth. And that's the reason why when Tipu Sultan's swords, the British were so scared of that. Even when he lost the battle, the 40 or 50 swords, they brought a special machine from London to even break up into shreds all the because they thought they might also rise one day in battlefield. They were so scared of the Damascus swords. So this is actually the difference between the pattern welded material and the Damascus swords. As somebody was telling, these are all the places where different carbon percentages of steels which you fold and then you roll and you say it is Damascus sword. It is not. So Damascene process and these, they are different. So now I will just quickly tell you so you can, this is one of the theories, the last 2-3 slides. So this is how the carbonizing process, you take it and then you can take sponge iron, then you are producing a wrought iron, put charcoal. This is how Sharbi, Oleg Sharbi, Sharbi is the short name of Sarvikov in Stanford University. So he was in a way my guru, because I went there and I found he was writing about Damascus swords. Damascus swords revisited with a question mark. So that's how I started. And then you quench it and then you finally produce the sword. But have you produced actually the structure? Not yet. So therefore, what I wanted to tell you is, there are also other people, Japanese are making, Russians are making, they have different names, Yakiba or Hammond and so on, which are comparable, but they are not same. So now, Michael Faraday, we all know they all worked and wrong, completely wrong, etc. Most important is this. So we knew that they were resorting to some kind of heat treatment, and this heat treatment was taking us through the heterogeneous nucleation of cementite. We take the cementite, if I take here and we are here, we go to a temperature like that, dissolve a part of the cementite, leave behind traces of cementite, and then you get spheroidization. And that's what is divorce eutectic transformation is all about. We know that. But can you do it on a lag process? Which what we did. We did that. So when we did it, this appeared in Scandinavian Journal of Metallurgy, 2 of our presentations from NML. So you will find actually, after hot working, you will find that actually extremely fine, 500% elongation. This is actual sample at Jamshedpur. And then our people are very happy and they were rejoicing. So I had to actually pour some cold water on that euphemism, if you like. Why? I said 3000 years back our ancestors did it. So therefore there is no reason yet to rejoice, because we have never been able to produce the patterns as yet. So that's what I would show. So on the electron microscope we found actually almost nano-sized grains of cementite. So if you have nano-sized cementite in a ferritic matrix, you actually get this. So that's what we did. We succeeded in getting that. So it's all thermomechanical treatment. That's what was done. But hydrochlorate is all right. Analysis of that was all right. Now this is the breaking point. So Verhoeven, this is the Scientific American's cover page, 1999. So he said the mystery of Damascus, so it's demystified. So how did he say demystified? Because one day he said this is an event of serendipity. How? One day they didn't have enough materials, so they had some sand from Karnataka shore, and he said out of disgust I put that sand into the melt. And when I put it into the melt, then they got this. They found that there are carbides. These are the carbides ahead of the solidification front, and these are the dendrites which are forming. So these are the fine carbides. These are from vanadium and chromium. So these carbides are forming on the solidification front, and subsequently you get the pattern actually. So this pattern that we talk of, I don't need to get it. So last point I want to say is that the recent work, so superplasticity etc. This is the recent work. 3D on the you may have seen this. Yesterday somebody, you are telling, or somebody was talking about the nanocarbon tubes. You are telling about the nanocarbon tube. That's why I didn't want to repeat the nanocarbon tube. Instead I showed the 3D printing. The 3D printing of Damascus sword is being attempted in the US today over the past 1.5 years. What I want to tell you is this field is the only field of India which is 3000 years old, and yet it has kept up actually all the scientific and technological inquisitiveness even today. That's what I wanted to say. So even today it appears to be active, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mohan. Now, we will take 2 quick questions.
Anybody?
I think they were blown over by too many things.
Not directly related to metallurgy, but when you talk about this Konark temple, there is always a myth or popularly shared folklore.
You are talking about the brass?
No, the Konark temple.
Konark temple, yes.
The one that fell down.
Yes.
The Rekha Devula.
Yes.
They talk about a magnet being.
No,
there.
yes,
so
yes.
Can you show some light on that?
So though we call them apocryphal. So the only word in English that describes that, which has no base in science, they are called, basically they are apocryphal, that there was actually a big magnetic block on the top of that. The stone was actually a lodestone, and it was magnetic, and that was keeping all the other rocks, and that is how it was keeping it in structure, in shape, and then the British actually took it out, and that is how the whole thing failed. No. Instead of that,
the beauty is that temple, in Odisha temples you find the cement is naturally not there. Lime also is very rarely used. They would put it in a counterpoise technique.
You know exactly how you can put the office, what you call the block, you know where your file is kept. File. File is a slopy thing, thick piles. So what you do is you put one like this, one like this, one like that, one like that. That is how you build. They have all planes. So stones were cut like that. That is called a counterpoise technique. That's one. Secondly, they also say that there was an Ashtadhatu, which was also being held by magnets of equipolar strength, and that is how, without any support, it was there, and sun's first rays used to come and fall inside. Now, we have not found yet any evidence. So, Central Building Research Institute, Roorkee, CBRI, so they did a lot of work essentially on finding out the strength of the foundation.
So, they took out actually by inserting a thin tube, which is a standard technique, and they found out that the foundation probably was the culprit. The foundation is not strong enough to hold actually 230 feet temple almost on the seashore. So that was the problem. So far the scientific world believes that.
This is regarding this iron pillar theory only.
Sorry?
Iron pillar regarding,
okay.
I was wrong in the
iron beam.
Yes sir, overall.
Overall, okay.
So I was wrong the last time when I said it is rust free. Actually it is a rusting, but the rust is protecting it from further corrosion. Now the thing is, what I wanted to ask, whether the composition of Dhara iron pillar, Delhi iron pillar and Konark beam, whether it is same, number one. Second, if the composition is similar, whether they were from the same source, and the manufacturing technique, what they say that is not melted, it is basically forced, the particles are forced. Whether the manufacturing technique also for this all three objects is similar or not.
I spent a lot of time yesterday on this particular aspect. So I would only therefore spare some words, but basically to say, not only would the composition from Konark to Delhi to Dhar will be very different, but in Delhi iron pillar itself, as we showed yesterday, the work of Kalpakam, and where the composition and the in situ the electropotential studies, they show that the corrosion properties are different on Delhi iron pillar itself as you go from the bottom to the top. Now when you come to Konark, for example, by and large the phosphorus is much higher, and that's not because of the fact Delhi iron pillar, by and large the phosphorus is lower, pardon me. Phosphorus in Delhi iron pillar is of the order of 0.8 to 0.1, 0.15, whereas in Konark and Dhar also, Konark iron pillar, the phosphorus content is of the order of 0.08, 0.6, etc. So it's much lower, but that's not because of the fact that we were doing any dephosphorization, but only because of the fact that the ore which was being used and the kind of the charcoal which was being used, that means the kind of tree that you have, the phosphorus only comes from these two sources. So therefore the phosphorus is lower here. But whether the phosphorus is responsible, go through the about 10 publications on the corrosion behavior, but particularly important are two publications I would refer. One is Bala's publication in the British Journal of Corrosion Science, which goes to some 15 pages, and the other one is the Kalpakam work. The Kalpakam work is Baldev Raj and Kamachi Mudali, and you will find they have given a complete comprehensive report on the corrosion resistance to say that the wet and dry alternate process probably is a bigger cause than anything else, and of course the Delhi iron pillars distance from the seashore. This is what we say. And then of course he has shown, Dr. Balasubramaniam has shown how the amorphous layer is there and that layer is actually impervious, etc., etc. But these people have slightly differed from that. So even today we do not know unequivocally that this is the reason. So multiple reasons have actually contributed. This is what I would say.
Or the people who were making it were different. It was not a localized knowledge, it was a diverse knowledge. They may be all phosphorus containing, but the people were different.
Correct. Correct. Now one thing I think before I end, I have to say that. I have to say that. Because this is a question which some people have asked me, very young people have asked in many places. A 30 feet beam, you have kept them the smaller pieces, then you have put the bloomery iron, and 30 people are working and they are all hammering. So I think I want Dr. Anuradha also to listen to this. 30 people are hammering. How do they hammer together? How do they hammer together? So I always tell them, go to the Indian weavers, whether it is in Odisha or Kerala or somewhere else. You will find weavers, when they are making a sari, they weave a sari, what do? They sing. They sing, and during the song itself, they would put, this is the time when this particular, the pattern has to be there. So even in hammering, they do the same thing. And this is the beauty. And so the villagers knew quite a few things. And Dr. Venkatraman, the interesting thing is, bronze, which is a copper tin thing, and there are so many intermetallics in the copper tin diagram. And there are, yes, I must mention this. When I started with the mirror which you have given, why is it? The Kerala mirror is Kerala mirror. Anything that you polish will have a, the other day, about a month back, a friend of mine, he actually goes to the villages, collects the different artifacts and brass and bronze, and then he tells me, telephones, sir, we have produced a mirror as good as your Kerala mirror. I said, yes, but what did you do? He said, we have polished it, and our people knew how to polish it, and you can see your face, everything. So I said, but that's what I told him, that's what we do in our undergraduate classes, in all metallographic classes, whether it is stainless steel or anything, we make it mirror polish. They are not mirrors. They are not mirrors. So my young friends, young children who are there, if you purchase a 5 rupee worth of mirror from the market, you can also purchase 500 rupee worth mirrors from market. What is the So it will also, even this mirror, also if it is not protected well, it will also scratch. So therefore, the young children here, the mirror is because of the fact that there is a reflecting surface, but it has to be protected, otherwise there will be scratches. So to prevent that scratch, you put the glass. But here, there is no glass protection. So you have to increase the inherent hardness of the Cupertine system. So in the Cupertine system you have to bring in delta phase, and that delta phase forms according to a quenching. So it's quenched mirror, and thereafter it is polished, and the rest is everything all of you know. Thank you very much. So that's what I wanted to say.
Last question from my side.
Yes.
Because this is one of the objectives given by our Ministry of
How do you
Culture.
take it forward?
Yes. So what are the area of research and technology development that Bharat needs to be focused so that we will be world leaders in by 2047?
Correct.
So in that direction, what is your suggestion?
Yes, the suggestion is, as far as the Damascus sword is concerned, we have many learning points. From superplasticity to what we saw also by the patterns. So therefore, the pattern part is only aesthetic part, but the superplasticity part is extremely important. And therefore, there is also one part of the superplasticity. It is not only the grain size. Sorry, this is metallurgy, so I don't want to discuss more. So there is a possibility of this.
If I precisely understand this wood testing related research, we should somehow encourage to do.
Yes, that's one part, but I also wanted to tell you, only a few months back, I have come across an article in a respected journal where Newton refraction of the Japanese swords have been done, and that is how they show that it's quite different from the Damascus swords, because this is one single material. So there you will find, without doing anything else, without doing metallography. So superplasticity is one part. When you come to the Konark thing is composite beam. Now even in the University College of London where I went and lectured, so far the world has not known, this is very important, so far the world has not known beams of that size which are composite in nature, which have the property to arrest the cracks. And that is why even if you have discontinuities in the welding, they are 12 inches square. Even if they have discontinuities, 80 tons, 100 tons stone which was kept over there, the Sutradhara used to define what the middle cross section is and the end cross section, which is why we wanted to find out. You can't have a Sutradhara sitting in Konark and get the beam somewhere done, because this is according to the bending moment and the diagram of that. So the span he knows, he will tell you that 12 inches end mein rahega aur beech mein 13 inches rahega. So naturally it has to be cast there. This is what we believe. But we have to do a lot of GPR studies in order to find out where it was being made. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And now I request Dr. Anup Shukla to present a memento to Professor Mohanty. Please come, sir. And as per the schedule, this there is a microscopy contest. So this will be done during this thematic competition, and we will go for lunch at this time. And at 2 p.m. we have to come back again. We will start next panel discussion.
Really an honor to hear from you.
Thank you very much.
And discuss with you. We really get good knowledge, sir.
कुछ नॉलेज नहीं, आप लोग सब बढ़िया काम कर रहे हैं.
Thank you all for joining this session.